Shan, we live.
Mistaken. You have to wait till the thing goes down. I mean, Jesus. How long have we been doing this? Shit. Happy Friday, everyone. And a great Friday it is because it's my birthday. It's my birthday. We're going to party like it's my birthday. You say what? Everybody except for Nas has their cap on. This is, this can barely fit my head. But I tried it.
You got your Monchetti.
It's my raspberry beret, the kind you find at the secondhand store. Let me introduce everybody. I'm sorry. Mistaken. The AP. Marky Mark. Enos. My name is Shan Monet, formerly known as Shantae, and this is a Chic critique.
Why you change your name?
What you say? What?
Why you change your name? I just wondered about.
Because y'all kept calling me Shantae, and my name is not Shantae, so I figure I'll just say Shan Monet, because my middle name is Monet.
Well, if we was calling you the wrong name, why you just ain't change it to that name?
To say Shantae, so you can keep screwing it up.
I'm just saying, if you was gonna switch your name,
my nickname is Shan.
You the wrong name.
Her nickname is Shan.
My nickname is Shan, so Shan Monet is really my name. Like Shan, my middle name is Monet. Shan Monet.
The logic ain't.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, Enos took like 6 straight shows to correct us all.
Yeah, that's
over
true.
And over again.
Listen,
and I think we got it.
Started in April. And I went all the way to September, maybe even December. And y'all still call me Shantae. Just like Enos was called
Inez.
Inez.
She didn't change her name. She was like, robot.
Yeah, whatever. So today we are talking about Stop the Cap, but we're not going to talk about Stop the Cap immediately. We're going to go straight. You're going to go into it a little bit later. But I kind of wanted to start out by, one of the things that bugged me the most when I look into because, that whole bus driver thing was so popular this week. But one of the things that bugged me the most is people have this assumption that if you do decent for yourself, you automatically have bad character. And if you don't, you're not doing so well, that person automatically has great character. So when you don't think so, Marky Mark?
No, it'd be some terrible people who not doing good for themselves too.
That's the point.
Like,
that's the point. So when I dug a little deeper into the whole situation, that to me was what was kind of put out there. It was kind of like, oh, but you wouldn't go for this guy because his character. I'm like, well, who's to say his character? Because it's some souls on all levels, So why is it that we automatically, and it's not even about this subject, but other subjects as well. I've always seen people automatically assume that the high value man or the guy who's doing well for himself is the asshole or the player. And they automatically think that the guy who does it, he's not the player. He's got good character. He's the good guy. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
I think when it comes to the man, it might come from like interactions. Because a lot of times when you get a lot on your plate, you don't have the ability to sit and shoot the breeze with people how somebody who don't have as much to do can. So you might come off as abrupt or sudden, or you don't got time to tolerate a lot of nonsense and foolishness. So you cut people off when they be acting away. You don't entertain certain conversations. Some stuff you just rather pay than actually try and do, and that could make people mad who physically have to go do those things. And when it comes to women, it's because maybe the man they wanted, who had the bag that they wanted him to have, didn't choose them. So because he was able to have such a cyclical stream of women coming in, then it just seemed like you running through them because you had the ability to continue to refresh the idea of looking for someone. Let's call it that. So yeah, that could be it. I don't know.
I like that. I think that's a really good explanation. I think to add more to it, people like to normalize their own experience, right? And so if you're not doing too great for yourself, which is, to be honest, the majority of people, you want to make that the good standard. Like that's the part where the good character is, that's the part where all of this stuff and the things that you aspire to, if you haven't been able to actually attain those things, then that's bad. So if you demonize it, then you don't have to feel bad about yourself for not attaining it. It's like that, like hateration, right? Like that hate you give to, and jealousy, right? Of being in a position where you aren't able to yourself.
And a lot of times, like with Jay-Z or something, people that talk about the business deals that went wrong that was anti the community. So especially in the black community, it could come off as if you selling out the community depending on how you made the money. If you made it like, let's say, for instance, bashing black women all day, people gonna just swear you don't got no good character, especially women. Or some of the men might feel like if you made it pandering and saying Steve Harvey talking points all day that you don't got no good character. It really depends on perspective, like you said.
Did anybody else want to give their 5 cents on that?
I'm good.
Nobody? Yeah, it just bothered me because, and even with any type of scenario, it seems to be good guy automatically is associated with, okay, well, you ain't dating him because he's this and this, but he has a great character, and then it automatically assume that the other guy doesn't have great character. So I just wanted to dig a little deeper into that. Thank you, Marcus and Enos, for participating in that discussion.
Well, I do have something to say. I also think it's about perspective and your point of view based on who you're around. Typically, we make judgment calls about the other because we're not around that group. So we are, like, I guess, projecting what we feel that group is doing because we don't have access to it. And so I think that's part of the issue too, is that from the outside, if you're on, like, you're not in that 1%, you see the way that they move or do things. Now they're the villain because, they're taking all of the working class money. And, so you have this idea of them being the bad group. But then if you are in the 1%, from that point of view, you're looking at like, why won't these people pull up themselves from the bootstrap? They're always just looking for handouts, like that kind of stuff. So I think that judgment comes from depending on your group or perspective, that point of view that you're in based on your experiences.
Do you think, go ahead, Enos.
Yeah, I wanted to add one more that was along the lines of what Mistaken was saying. I think there's also this mentality and like behavior that it takes for somebody to reach that level of success, right? Like whether it's financially or whatnot, there's a certain level of like cutthroat that happens. There's a certain level of like disconnect of like emotions and empathy, right? This idea that like the good, nice person who's doing their job properly is not the person that works their way up, right? And I think that doesn't help that reputation of, poor character rising the ranks.
That's a good point. Did you want to add anything? AP or Cap?
AP is fine.
Caps.
Not really. I'm just kind of listening. And off Mistaken's point, I don't necessarily 100% agree. So just looking at it from more like an anecdotal experience myself, coming from zero and having to scratch and scrape and ultimately find a way, and then working to get friends that were in the same situation to do certain things and move a certain way, and they wouldn't do it, right? So I don't know if it's necessarily that. And I know, Shan, that you said that you didn't want to necessarily look at that particular that particular interview that she did, but it's hard to not look at it because the way Inyala laid it out was there. What if this guy is a good man? What if this guy does everything right? And she still said screw her or screw him, right? Like unless he owns the bus, I'm not gonna do it. And Inyala laid it out like it was a good man.
But my question, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, it's all right. So I think that's why you heard a lot more, a lot of people talking about it because of the way it was laid out. And I don't think it's necessarily if a person has a lot of money, they're good or bad. And if a person doesn't have any money, they're good or bad. I really think that is like I said, it's about the perspective, right? Like I just think it's truly through that person's perspective. I don't think it's any more or less than that. Which is why I didn't have anything to add because I thought Inaz touched it perfectly.
So, is good character the only thing that's needed for a relationship?
Well, Shane, let me just say this because that's the other part. I don't know how many people actually watched that whole interview, but leading up to the part that Ebony was saying, like how she was, laying it out, you could tell that when she posed the question to Iyanla, it was on a level of finance about men, leveling up, to be able to protect and provide or whatever. And so that was the issue that I guess I kind of had with the way Iyanla asked the question, because she was specifically setting up the response to be more on a financial level. But then, Iyanla came back and said, would you date a bus driver? She's like, well, no. So if you're looking at it from just a financial perspective, it makes sense. What happened was Iyanla didn't piggyback on that, like, why? What happened to good character? What happened? I would think most people would take that as a given. Like, of course you would want somebody with good character. Like, that would be the baseline. That's what I'm assuming. Where most people would say, of course, I want somebody with integrity, good character. But because she was talking specifically, I think, addressing more of the leveling up part, and Iyanla came back with that, it made it put her in a peculiar situation in regards to, it was no way that she could have gotten around that when it was set up like that.
So I want to make sure, because I don't want to go down the I don't want to. So I want to take us out of the bus driver. I know that started the conversation, but I want to dig deeper into the whys of things, okay? Because it's not a bus driver. It could be a person who may think that, like, I love my UPS drivers, but somebody who may say, I don't date UPS driver, or I don't date, what other profession is? Whatever, whatever your preference is, there's always going to be something that somebody doesn't, do. Okay. And so what I have found is that there has become, in a sense, an entitlement amongst both women and men. It feels like I have to have everybody.
So, go ahead.
And so my question to you guys is, so what I want to talk about today is why that doesn't work, or why it could work.
So I think we've talked about this a couple times in the past. Not everybody qualifies for everybody, and not everybody prefers everybody. That's just the simple truth of the matter. I am on record as stating some hood chick wouldn't have access to me. That doesn't suggest that she's not a good person or that she could have good character. It's just that she doesn't have she wouldn't have the access to me, right? And I just think that if I'm going to look at the devil's advocate side of the manosphere and the conversation that occurred last week, not everybody would have access to Ebony. Hell, not everybody has access to Iyanla. And I mean, she's of course, I believe, married and all of that other stuff. But not everybody has access to everybody. And we like to think that we do. I think social media has played a huge part in that. But truth is, we don't. We really don't. I messaged Halle Berry about a month ago. She still ain't reached back. I don't know what's going on. I'm just saying.
It's so funny. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to get a clip from Cruise Season in a few minutes, because one of the things that he talks about in the clip is, if you are, if you want to be I think he used a stock boy, and you like doing that, by all means, do that. Do what it is that you are called to do, that you love to do. But if your mate has to be okay with that as well. You have to find somebody who sees your vision and fits perfectly with you. I think the issue becomes when we try to make people fit like in our puzzle pieces, bring them together, and they don't fit. And so give me 2 seconds, I'll put that video up, okay? Hopefully it's the right one because they both look alike. I got 2 of them. Ooh.
Most people are what they see. My son only see a great lifestyle. You don't know nothing about the hood. So why would you want to go live in the hood? You wouldn't. You're going to look down on them people. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying nobody better than nobody. I'm not saying that. But when everybody know, man, when you start providing certain steps in life for your kids, for somebody that you're providing it for, when they get the chance to lead the situation, motherfucker, I'm not looking for you to take steps back. I'm looking for you to elevate. Take my name to a different stratosphere. And you should be doing the same for your kids. You don't want mediocrity in your kids. You're not going to say that to your kids. Oh, I'm proud of whatever you do, son. So if your kid go out here, you providing the goddamn two.
That was the wrong video, but we're going to go ahead and use that one, okay?
I knew it. I was like,
it's my birthday. I can do whatever I want to do because it's my birthday.
Move us right on.
But
I do not disagree with Smooth.
We'll go back to the other one. You said what?
Somebody in the chat
I do
said-
not disagree with anything that he just said.
So this is
disagree
the
with no part of
conversation. So this is the conversation that this is a different conversation. So we're going to go back to the other one. We're going to talk about this one now, okay? So basically from this conversation, what I got is when if we put it in women's term, if you have gotten yourself to a certain level, let's just say you grew up in the hood and your goal was to get out the hood. You understand what I'm saying? And finally you did all these things to get there. You won't do something to put you back to where you work so hard to get out of. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that a lot of people, what the dilemma that a lot of women who have maintained a certain success come across is, God, I can't go back. I can't choose a partner that can possibly put me back in that situation. Does that make? Do you agree with that? I disagree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that was going to say too, is that I think that is part of the problem is, and I think is the burden in a sense, and I may be biased. I'm understanding that I'm looking through the lens of a woman, is that expectation, if a woman makes it, that she shouldn't exclude anybody else. So she came out the hood and she made it to the 1%, that she should still be in a position to choose somebody from the hood. She shouldn't turn her back on the hood. She should still be able to date somebody because she's gonna forget where she came from, that kind of mindset. Whereas I don't think that same expectation is put on men. When they make it out, they have options. And so in terms of society, the thing is that the expectation for them to choose better instead of getting the hood rat, that becomes their expectation. And I think that's where sometimes that difference come in, where I just think is just not right, because once you get to a certain level, the idea is you want to meet your match that's either at that level because you're going to be in the same circles, or of course above because you want to probably obtain more, whether that is more in terms of finances, more in terms of social access, just things like that.
So I wholeheartedly disagree, right? Because I think it's so much more socially acceptable for a man who has risen to that level to go back and get the hood rat and clean her up and turn her into somebody who can navigate those circles, right? I think that's where men have more options because they don't limit themselves in their belief that way. Whereas there's like this stigma, if a woman, like this idea that there aren't any good men in the hood, right? Like that's nuts. Not every man in the hood is no good, or can't read, or is in and out of jail all the time. Like I think that those stereotypes are not only dangerous from outside our community, I think they're equally dangerous inside of our community. There's nothing wrong with reaching back. There are good people no matter where you go, right? but women have become socialized to prioritize social standing, that we look down on each other for doing that. That social pressure to be like, no, you reach this level, you got to pick something in your standard. And so much so mistaken, like, to what you were saying about a man picking somebody within his social circle, that's actually a standard women impose on men, right? Like, that these men should be choosing women who are just as successful as them. But we've heard time and time again men say, we don't care about that, right?
They say that, but let's be honest, when we look in reality, how often, I'm looking at the total picture, how often do you typically see a man who's in, like, we'll say top 10% or making that level of money with a woman that is and I just don't want to say hood booger, or whatever, but that is that type of woman. That's because I don't see, I'm just saying for me, I have not seen that often.
So like we like to use like celebrities as examples, right? It happens all the time in that world, but what they do is they prop that person up. They make them the next up and coming artist. They make them the next person who's all over television. They make them the next social media guru. They elevate them and push them and open doors for them to be successful women, right? But women are so like the don't build a man narrative, right? Like, if you do that, he's going to leave you. If you support a man financially, it's going to be a problem, right? And yes, it happens, but it's put such a negative outlook on women elevating men to their social standing, whereas men don't typically have that problem.
And I remember seeing a clip. I wish I knew what it was so I can reference it directly. That spoke just to that. And I think, did we play it on? No, I don't know if we played it on here.
What are you about to say? Because I don't want you to jump.
No, that it was talking about specifically to what Inaz was saying. That you usually have a woman that will open doors for men when they're in a position.
Okay, so we're going to let's pause that because that's going to be the meat later on.
Okay.
Because we're stopping the gap. Okay, but
there's a lot in here to unpack. I actually don't agree with you, Inaz. So unless the guy typically knows the woman prior to him getting to wherever he is, he's not going back to just pick up something random. He's not going to go to the local Waffle House and say, "Hey, let me change your life." That only happens in TI videos. That doesn't really in Pretty Woman. That's not a real life something that truly happens. Second, my argument is most men will have an issue with a woman that is, let's call it 6-7 levels above him. That it will work for a little bit, maybe. But it's not going to work long term because he's going to feel inferior, and that's going to play on his ego, and that's going to become a problem. When he starts to elevate, his options will become more open, and then it will depend on the kind of woman that elevated him on whether he stays true to her or looks for other options. This is just my opinion, but what they do with pretty faces in the hood, they go back and bust them down and still never marry them. They become toys. I'm just going to be honest with you. So I'm gonna let Marcus chime in, but that's really my opinion on this.
All right, so I'm gonna have to agree with Inaz on this. But I needed y'all to define something for me. When y'all talk about girls in the hood, like, do you mean location? Do you mean attitude? Do you mean perspective? Educate? Like, can you give me like a ballpark of the type of
yes
you're describing?
Yes, just what you just said. All of the above. Yeah.
So if let's say she come from the location, but she went to school and she still don't make that much money because everybody with a college degree makes a lot of money, do y'all still consider that the same?
No, because I look at kind of like if you elevated and you went through the steps to learn, certain social norms, things like that, and that same chick has that ability to do so, that she can also be a person that will be able to blend and be a complement to the environment in which you're going to be in, I don't consider that a hood booker. What I'm saying is, yeah.
What about if she didn't go to school, but she's an articulate person? She can expand upon the idea.
I don't consider that a hood booker.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be formal education. You can be well versed.
I don't consider that.
So many things that you can do that's not formal education, like going to a university that elevates you. So,
okay, I'm trying to understand so I could accurately answer this question, because like the things that it probably will work on the inverse. Like, now this is why I gotta agree with the AP. It will probably work on the inverse with me about women that I wouldn't want to date long term, and I would end up just busting down. That would so if her only concern is going to the top social club, if her only concern is vacationing in the XYZ spot, if she lives her life to be an Instagram influencer and make sure people are jealous of the way she's living, if she don't feel a way, like I like to hang out with my cousins. If I can't take her with me when I go see my family and they're outside in an area that she may not be from, then I don't really want to date her, because I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. And I'm not going to be in a relationship where I got a code switch in my own home. That's crazy to me. I'm a very relaxed, like y'all know me. You know how I am. I'm not about to be with somebody that's extremely uptight or pomp and circumstance. They stand on pomp and circumstance. That's not really my thing. I want to have a good time. I want to be relatable. I want us to have similar energies. And a lot of times when you be too uptight, you can't enjoy nothing. I don't know if you ever went on a date with a girl like this, AP, but y'all go someplace and she find a reason to like be dissatisfied with something. That is the like, you're like, bro, you mean to the waiter, and you talking to people like they beneath you. Even if you're not acknowledging them, you don't say thank you when they bring you stuff. Like, I'm watching all of that because I'm judging it. Like, you probably think you above this waiter, and I can have more money than everybody there, but it wouldn't matter to me because I'm still looking at her like, oh, when I bring you around my cousins or when I bring you around the guys that I grew up with or any of that stuff, you're gonna be judging them and they're gonna get that energy and be like, I don't like her, and that's gonna make me feel away because now I can't go hang out with them because I can't bring you. So I either gotta be with you or be with. I'm just not doing it. I'm sorry.
So, and that's the thing, Marcus. I think that we take things to the extreme. Just because you're educated doesn't mean you're bougie. It's a lot of down to earth women who are, everyday women who cool as hell. You know, you can chill with them. I think the internet has blown. You know, everybody's on Instagram. Some people don't even have Instagram. Some people are just like watchers on Instagram.
To be honest, I'm the hood booker in my family.
Well, I was answering the question. You guys said if you feel like somebody is 6, 7, I'm guessing 6, 7 levels would be like what Jeff Bezos doing. Just like I don't. It's not extreme. I was trying to answer the question. How y'all posed it.
So when I'm thinking about reality, where let's take out those small percentage of that girl was like she's $3 million. You know, that's not the majority of people. Even if you're educated, you're not making that money. You understand what I'm saying? So let's just bring it back down to reality. When you're talking, I'm talking about everyday people who you come across. Maybe she's educated. She ain't boo. She ain't going off on the waitress. She's not doing all of those things, the stereotypical things that they like to say we do. None of those things. We're talking about a cool ass chick who got her shit going on. That in my mouth.
Yeah, there's no problem with that.
How did I meet them though? Like it all depends on there's so many factors. Like, how did I meet her? What made me approach her? It just really depends. And then when I see her character, that tells me exactly which way I want to move with her. So, like, how did we cross paths? Whether I'm above her or she's above me, how did we cross paths? Were we in the grocery store and I was like, "Ooh, let me go ahead and say what's up"? Was she working at the grocery store? Did I say, "Ooh, let me say what's up," which is unlikely. You see what I'm saying? It really matters on where we met, how we met, and those circumstances. You
know what? I think that because I know Inaz brought up the celebrity thing, but what I find, even when I look at celebrities, they find that those people find their match. You know, even if they have money, they find their match. For example, when I look at what's the guy who always beating up on his girlfriend and she's always beating up on him,
Blue something.
they match. You know, people, just because you have money doesn't mean you're not hood, or that doesn't mean that you are this guy. You match.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? And I think that what I'm saying is when there's a mismatch, because we can say it sounds good to say, oh, we're gonna date all these people, but in reality, is that really what's gonna happen? Come on now. It sounds great on the internet because nobody wants to people coming at them, but that's just not the reality, right?
Yeah, but dude, like I don't hang out in the same places that I used to. So how do I like? How would they find themselves in the same locations that I find myself? Or again, if they're a level or two above me, how do I find myself in the location that they are? Like I'm like it really there's a lot that matters because, like I said before, um, like a lot of people don't have access to certain people, so it's very very rare unless it's Paris Hilton doing a show on a farm in Fort Smith, Arkansas. It's just rare that we
Well,
see.
I think that's her point. I think that's the point, is that a lot of times when we are and I'm gonna just say in this space, because I think what happens in this space doesn't necessarily reflect my day-to-day reality. So usually when I'm speaking from my day-to-day reality or based on stats or whatever that I've read. But in this situation, a day-to-day reality is exactly what you said. Typically, you're going to meet people based on your environment that you're in. Very rarely are you going to be in environments like, if I'm in the middle class, it's very rare that I'm going to be in an event with the upper epsilon people or whatever. I'm just not. Unless it's just somebody that I happen to know who knew somebody and was like, girl, you want to come with me to something like that? And then vice versa. It's just going to be places that I'm just not going to be. So 9 times out of 10, my day-to-day, I'm going to be in an environment that it represents my day-to-day. So that's the part that I think I struggle with a lot of times when I'm in these spaces, is because it's this idea for that women, the expectation that women feel like they should be able to have access to any man that they desire, which is typically they want the top 1%. And then I also think on the flip side with men, that they also feel like they should be able to access or have access to any woman they want. And when neither one of them get it, like if a woman was like, nah, I don't want to deal with those guys, I want these guys, then it's an issue with the men. And they're like, oh, that's a 3 at best. She don't think that so is this attack about that. But then on the flip side, women will get mad at a man and be like, ooh, what he choose her for? You know what I'm saying? So I think it goes both ways, but it's just a matter of you're gonna get who you have access to. And a lot of times we want the people that we don't have access to.
I don't think men think like. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Shan.
So I real fast, and I want you to say what you're gonna say, because I got a feeling I'm gonna have to come back on that too. But it's so crazy, but you do. I mean, think about, I don't know where everybody else is, but I'm in the city of Atlanta. And so people have an idea of where certain people are, and they know how to get there. For example, they know that people of a certain caliber, they go here, or they go there. So what they'll do is they'll dress up and they'll go there, and they'll, try to be around these people. So I don't agree that you don't have access. You can if you put your energy into it, here in Atlanta at least. So it's not hard to have access to these people because you know where they are. Go to the Four Seasons, to a restaurant in the Four Seasons. They'll be there, So I kind of disagree with that. And all it does,
it depends on who that you're referring to. You're referring to celebrities.
No. I'm referring to people who have money, period. So if I know if I go to the St. Regis or if I go to the Four Seasons, those people who are staying in these rooms are going to be in the restaurant. So I go mingle in the restaurant. People, you'll be amazed, especially the women in Atlanta. They have a lineup of where they know these men are and they go. So you can have access. You can step out of your environment and step into their environment so you can be seen. Now, once you're seen, that's when
Or you're gonna see it don't match up.
it doesn't match up. Exactly.
So
I
I just want to touch on Miss Taken's point real quick. I disagree. I think men are realistic, and we want women to be realistic. I really do. So the men that I see in these spaces, the men that I see in these spaces typically are going after the women that say things like, "I'm a 10 when you're a 6. I'm a 10 when you're a 5." I don't think that men really look at like, I don't really ever expect Halle Berry to really call me back. You know what I mean? Like, I that's not a real expectation that I have. Nor am I actively going out to try to figure out where she is to get in that space. No, and I think most men are that way. I like when I look around this space, this YouTube space. That's what I really notice, and I think that's one of the things Kevin Samuels was really good at pointing at when he went at women. He's like, "You're not being realistic," and I think men are truly realistic. We understand that. You know what? I'm not going to qualify for Jessica Alba, so I'm not going to really go after Jessica Alba. And I'm gonna use, and I hope I don't mean to call his name because I don't want him to pop up, but I think Jay Prince is realistic in his. I'm using him as an example because he's kind of hood, right? But I don't think he really expects himself to come across the path of whoever, Scarlett Johansson. I think he's realistic that way. I don't, and I think most men are. I don't think most men have that unrealistic expectation. Not to say we wouldn't shoot our shot if she came across our path, but we're not gonna act. We're not mad that she's not looking at us, right? And I think women actually get a little upset when they're not being looked at by that top 1, 2, 3%. Just my opinion.
That there's no way that you can say that. Do you know how many women who have like had those interactions in passing, regardless of whatever you rate them, who turn down men gently and still get cussed out? We're not going to pretend like on these YouTube streets that men are out here intentionally rating women lower than they should be just to get their own ego boost or to make a point. We're not going to sit here and talk about these men who are saying if you make X amount of money, that woman should want you. Like, I don't know if we're on the same internet, but like those are not the conversations I'm hearing at all. The majority of men, not you specifically, but the majority of men are equally as delusional as the women.
Oh, I fully disagree, because I know let's just say I made 3 times more money than what I make now, my options would become through the roof. And it's not because I'm looking, and it's not because I necessarily want it. That's just what would happen. I don't think men have the unrealistic expectation that they qualify for every woman. I haven't seen that yet. Not once. Go ahead, Mark.
So AP, to her point, I think that I gotta agree with her, because the delusion that she's talking about, right? So it's not one for one. It kind of separates differently. So we control the relationship, they control sex, right? So what we catch women in a delusion and exploit is the ability to have sex with a whole lot of women who may not qualify for us. What they might catch a man in his delusion and exploit is the ability to trick off and give you relationship attention and not have no intention on actually being with you. So they can cross intersects that way with the delusion. Like, good and well that woman would not be messing with you if you couldn't pay for her. Good and well he wouldn't be messing with you if you weren't just about to bust it open right now. That might be the delusion. That's where that crisscross X made. I gotta agree with all that.
And I would say this, because I know it was you, Cap, who, let's just be honest. The girl Ebony, whatever her name is, we all know that girl is not dating even if she didn't open her mouth. We knew that their girl she's not going to date a bus driver. You can look at her and tell that she's not going to date a bus driver. She didn't even have to say anything. She could have just And if you pair her up with somebody, we had to play a tic-tac, bring people together, and we just had her there. You probably wouldn't even put her with a bus driver. Right?
So I don't see it that way. What I see is a bus driver wouldn't be in her current orbit. So I don't think he would even, like, unless she's riding that bus, and I would assume she probably has a driver and not a bus driver. Unless she's getting on his bus, he's not going to be in her orbit. And that bus driver is never going to say, yo, that Ebony Williams, I can't believe she turned me down. I can't believe I don't have access to it. He fully understands. Maybe when she was what was she? She was a public defender when she was making $63,000, maybe. But where she's at now, he understands that he wouldn't have access to her. And men, we understand on the whole, and I think in general, we understand that we don't have access to those people. And that was never really the complaint.
So why was it such an art? No, don't get it twisted. I know she went on a tangent. There were more things to the story, and I'm not going to argue with that part. But why was it such an argument that she wouldn't? We kind of knew she wouldn't, you know. If we're saying she doesn't have access to these people, you know, she's not in the same vicinity as these people. Why was it such a big deal that she said it just came out of her mouth?
It wasn't like, to me, it wasn't what she said. It was more or less how she said what she said, because I even understood once I watched the full interview, I understood what she was saying. Mm-hmm. But you can't put down a whole class of people in the way she said it.
Hold on, no, that was after she had got on the Breakfast Club. We're not, and she was trying to double down on what she was saying. Scrap that part. We didn't even hear. Let's say we didn't even hear that part. Specifically to the initial interview with Iyanla. Iyanla asked that question, and she said no.
It was the way she answered.
People were already flipping about that part.
It was the way she answered. A simple answer, in my opinion, could have been, honestly, I don't have an issue with any bus driver, but it's unlikely that I would find a bus driver that would be in my orbit. But what she said was
no.
only if he owns the bus.
I get that. I get it.
Like she literally put down an entire class of guys or people, not even guys, because women drive buses too. But she put down an entire group of people.
I don't think she was coming from that way either. It's kind of like the clip that Shan played from the cruise season. That her mom was a bus driver, a hairstylist. She did all of these things for the sole purpose of making sure that she pushes her daughter into another level to do better than she did, right? And so when people are saying that, that's the part that I didn't like, is because they tried to use what she said as if she was putting everybody down just because she said she had a preference of not wanting to date.
AP, but real fast, listen to this. Remember, even when we posted, when I asked the ladies on the panel that same question, and even you came in a comment because people were coming for the panel for saying that they don't see themselves dating. Didn't say anything.
I was the only one that said I would.
Didn't even say nobody said anything disrespectful about bus drivers. We respect bus drivers, but for whatever reason, because the lady said they wouldn't date one, they went in.
It's all about, like, to me, it's all about how you say what you say. And mistaken, you actually said that you wouldn't, but you actually gave a whole bunch of context behind it, and then you end with it's going to really depend on the guy. But nobody else really said that. It was like, not really. I understand where y'all are coming from, and yes, we had, this is a show, so of course I'm gonna come after you a little bit. But when you put down a whole group of people and a whole profession, expect backlash. Expect it.
Let me.
But because I didn't see that at all.
And I like what Free JDC, real quick, I like what Free JDC just put in. He said, or she, it could be a he or she, men say they don't date single moms. I understand. And no, I wouldn't, unless the kid was over a certain age. Like there's a whole bunch of stipulations inside of that. But no, I wouldn't. But I wouldn't say, oh hell no, nasty B word. Like I'm
We
not
hear
gonna
that all the
attack it.
time in
I'm
this
not gonna
But
I'm
we
not
do
gonna
hear.
attack it that way. I understand how y'all hear it,
Mhm.
which is, if y'all remember, when I first got in this space, I would always say it's on the men to get the change made that they want made. Men need
So
to quit blaming women, and men need to move right. That has been my messaging. That will continue to be my messaging. So I will never beat up on a female, because it's up to men to actually fix whatever we think is broken. But at the same time, that don't mean that I prefer a single mom, right?
Can I point something out too? Because this is the point that I think I had made the last time. Because people keep saying it's the way she said what she said or what have you, right? If you go back and try to be very objective, take your feelings out of it. Everything that she said was straight facts in terms of when she was talking about our the community and the rate of people going to college. All of that was straight facts. I think what happened was that people got offended. They got caught in their feelings, and the reason is because, like you said, delivery and tone and all of that. But when we're in these spaces, especially with the men, they talk about tone policing all the time. Anytime when we say, well, the way they say certain things, then they're like, oh, they use that as an excuse to not accept accountability and blah blah blah. So they go on and on about don't worry about the delivery of the message. Take what the message was. But now that they felt offended, then it was a flip the script on her about what she was saying. But what she was saying, it was true.
So what if I said, you know what, man, I would never date a friggin' teacher. Like, you know what I'm saying? Oh, I
you
would
said
never
you want
date.
that
I would
teacher.
I would I would never date a teacher that they're not on my level, or however I decided to word it. You guys would get offended. It's not that men were offended by her not dating a bus driver. It's about her taking an entire class of blue collar workers and
Let me just
making them
tell you
sound
this.
like less than. So
Let me
like
just
when you
tell
play
you
that,
this.
go ahead.
If I knew collectively, if that, well, let's hypothetically speak, if men said, "Oh, we don't want to date teachers," and that lowered my pool, I probably would stop being a child. I mean, I go get the credentials to be something else, whatever you like, because I cater like that. Okay, so that's first and foremost. I wouldn't even get offended. I'm like, "Oh, okay, then you don't like this? What you like, baby? You know, I need to be a nurse. Okay, going back to school." That's just me. But there are people, there are people who don't want teachers. I mean, there are people, every profession, there's going to be somebody who says, "Oh, I don't want this." Somebody may not want their husband to be a doctor because they're like, "Oh, our police officer, because he's in, going out in the streets, or in the army or the navy or whatever, because he's like, oh, what if my husband gets deployed?" There's always people who doesn't want certain people. You understand? And there's nothing wrong with their profession. They are meant to be what they are. And there's a person who is around who respects that and will see that vision and will go along with that. You just have to find that person.
And I just want to say that, like, the amount of times I've seen on the internet men saying that they refuse to date nurses, that nurses are just like a category of women that they just will not associate with for a multitude of reasons. Like, it happens on both sides, right? But when, to what Shan was saying, and mistaken as well, like, when the men say it, women are just told to get out their feelings and just accept it as fact because the men control the relationship. But when women set standards for themselves, like, that's the point where it becomes a problem, where you think you're too good for people, your tone is wrong, your delivery. And I'm not for tone policing on either side. I think people should be handled with respect, but at the same time, like, people are allowed to have emotions, and so sometimes things don't come out the right way. But let's not pretend it's not happening on both sides, and only one gender is expected to mitigate their feelings about those statements, whereas the other one is just kind of allowed to ring free.
So it kind of seems like if the men who do make these statements, like I'm not dating fat women, or like Fresh and Fit be talking about what they say night rioters and all this other stuff. That's like a niche market. That's not like on the mainstream level where you had Denzel going up there saying, "I don't date women under 5, whatever," or creating a metric and then holding that thing as a standard to say he's against that on the mainstream level. She wasn't in like a niche. This is a women's only space making that comment. She was broadcasting her comment to the world, to both genders who may or may not believe her viewpoints. And it's going to be contentious when you do that. And that's for man or woman. I think Chris Brown was saying something about a club, like he only let light-skinned girls in his club. They ate him up for that. They completely ate that man up for that. You on mute, Miss Hagen.
I was saying, let me ask you something, because it was part of what you're getting at. And then Dub Will has said something. He said it wasn't her tone. Her message is dumb. Blue collar worker is not mediocrity. It's necessary. Go ask the Hispanics if they're going to give up on blue collar work. But if you listen to what she was saying, she wasn't associating the mediocrity only with blue collar work. She was associating it with the behavior and mindset. And the truth of the matter is, if we want to be honest, and I'll say from my experience, being in the school system, being growing up where I grew up, a lot of times we are looking to do the least and expect the most. And that's just, like I said, I can just speak from my experience. A lot of times, even if you look at where you got doing the things that you did, would you say you worked a lot harder than the other people around you in order to create the opportunities that you got to get where you're at?
Is that a direct question you asked?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what she was pointing out is when you do stuff like that, that's not mediocrity. Mediocrity is just average, right? Most people are average. That's what make them average. Most people fall in that average group. What she said is that she wants us to move from that mindset of doing just enough. Like, even if you're a bus driver, is that work necessary? Absolutely. But I also think you can have a bigger vision outside of that. Not just saying that if you're going to be a bus driver, cool, do that. But what is your vision beyond just being a bus driver? Just like me, what is my vision beyond just being, a teacher? So I think that was the more so of what she was getting at, that people wasn't listening to. They was taking it personally because what they call it, a hit dog holler. Mm-hmm. And it's just true. A lot of us do not try to push ourselves beyond a capacity that's going to make us uncomfortable to be better.
And you know what? I want to
do all of that though. At the end of the day, like, to force somebody to work harder and make more money, and they might not want to do that. Like, you can't. And that's force somebody into living a lifestyle that you want to live. And John Henry syndrome. You got somebody working themselves to death like that.
But that was her point. If you wasn't going to, she said, that's fine. If that's your capacity or your level of ability, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But for her personal standards, you need to have a bigger vision. And that's okay. I want a man that's going to have a bigger vision. Yes, drive that bus. But at some point, I want your vision to be, let's work towards owning that bus. Let's work towards getting that fleet. Whether that person actually gets there or not, it's just the mindset and the action behind trying to work beyond just saying, all I'm going to do is just this.
I think a lot of times in our community, especially, we forget about the sacrifices that it takes to make things happen and what you have to forego. Like, if you first generation making money for a family, it's a good chance you're gonna be absent. So now your kids is gonna miss out on you, or your spouse is gonna miss out on you. I think one of the largest divorce rates is with police because they go on so much and they bring the trauma from home with them. Or longshoremen or people who go on those Antarctica things. When you separate yourself chasing money, you might lose the thing that you was trying to hold on to the most. Sometimes men have the foresight to see like this not gonna work out because of that. It's things that just chasing after the bag all the time can prevent you from getting. I'm not saying be broke, but I'm also saying it's got to be some type of healthy medium that you can reach if that's not your ideal. Because at the end of the day, it's so many Gucci shirts you can buy. It's only so many cars you can have. It's only so many houses you can live in. It's like, at what point does somebody say I'm content? Like, and it's just saying like in this day and age, a lot of the women online and men have bought into this too. Is I'm just gonna keep grinding. I'm gonna work as hard as possible, and I'm gonna keep working.
Yeah, I don't agree with that either.
Like that. Good luck with that, bro. Like
but so I think that there again, you're absolutely right. But I think that too goes with the compatibility, because there are women who don't want that, Marcus.
That's
and I
me.
think that's what we get. We can't force people to have the mindset that we have. There are women who are okay with it, like, oh, I want my husband to be home. I just want to work this 9 to 5 so he can come home. I'm okay living this lifestyle.
That's not the majority of what women are saying online.
No. Online, you're absolutely right. Online, majority, because that's a small group of people. Everybody's not online saying that. That's a small group of people. It's just a loud few. Right. But even if they say that, we cannot force, like that's like what AP said when it comes to the baby mama. I have a child. I can't force you to want me and my kid. I can't, and I won't. When people talk, you have to listen to them. You cannot force people to be in situations that they don't want to be in. Period. We can talk about it all day, but at the end of the day, people have to choose what is best for them.
So
what's going to happen with most of our women is choosing what's best for them and be single. Because what's best for them in their mind,
and that's what men don't understand about women. Women, if the choice is choose a man that I don't want over being single, they're going to probably choose being single. Even if it means being single for and they'll make the best out of it. They may be unhappy, but they may still choose singles, because to them, that still beats waking up to somebody I just don't want to wake up to.
Inez, you co-signing this?
Inez, we literally
I'm sorry. Oh my God.
Oh my God. Inez, I knew. I was like, what's the name that everybody calls her?
You co-signing this? Because if so, I gotta agree with AP again. I'm switching sides.
I don't. And like, here's where I think like a huge disconnect is, right? Like, women will say, I want the man who works 9 to 5 and comes home for dinner, and expect that man to bring in the type of income of the man who's working 80 hours a week. I think women are either not clear on what they want, or they don't understand the repercussions of what they want, like the reality of the man that they envision in their head, right? Like, I think I tend to agree with a lot of the men that talk about like a lot of women are stuck in fairy tale land, because that guy who works 9 to 5, who isn't putting in those extra hours, is not buying you a closet full of Gucci bags, right? And the guy who is not going to be around, right? And so, yes, women have their standards. Yes, women are leaving marriages in pursuit of like, I'd rather be happy and whole, right? But I think at the same time, women aren't happy single. They're not, right? But I think that like what Marcus is talking about and Shan, what you're talking about, I think they're two really big extremes. And I think if people kind of move towards the middle a little bit more, we'd see a lot more marriages. Like, you're never gonna get 100% of your wish list. Like, no matter how amazing that person is, they're always gonna have a flaw. They're always gonna have a fault. Even if it comes 5-10 years into a relationship, like, there's always something you don't like about that person. That goes for your best friend. That goes for your family members. Like, your partner is not exempt from that, right? And so this idea of seeking out perfection when you are not perfect yourself, I think is like this wild thing that's happening for men and women.
Oh, I agree with you.
I
love you so much.
I agree with that, but let me clarify what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is, so for example, Inez, You 45 years old. You ain't met that guy of your dream, but there's a busboy who loves you. You're not attracted to him. You're 45, but you know you may die alone. Are you going to marry this guy?
I don't think 45 means I'm dying alone. So like already there's like that disconnect.
But what men are saying is the older you're getting, that wall, so you have to start being step into reality. So with that being said, because I'm trying to prove the point is just answer the question if you can answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, I wouldn't, right? But that's like so far to the extreme, right? So to answer your question simply, no, I would not get with a busboy because I feel like I'm going to be dying alone. But the idea of like that's my only option that will ever exist, and like at 45 my life is over if I haven't found somebody, I think is like there are other ways to seek out partners no matter what your age group is or what your life circumstances is or what your lifestyle is. At the same time, my expectations for a partner are not going to be the same as they were when I was 25.
Of course.
Right. And so I think, but that's where like that disconnect exists, right? We're hearing so many women who are later in their life or are not quote unquote desirable to these men, right? Saying, well, that man should want me. And these men are saying, well, we're explaining why we don't want you and you're getting mad about it, but we still, regardless of your feelings, we're not choosing you. Right. And I think that's where, I don't know. Does that make sense? Am I rambling?
It does. But I think that let me just clarify what I was saying. When I speak, I'm not talking about the delusion of things. I'm not talking about that 1%er, that guy who's making $300,000. I'm talking about if you go out and you can't find the guy who you would find yourself to be with, assume that you're not delusional. Okay. But then there's this guy who maybe doesn't make as much as you, I would say bus driver or whatever profession that is. At that point, would you marry that person because he's in love with you, just because, you know, he's who's available? And don't get me wrong, I know that you have other options, but obviously those options haven't worked thus far. So
yeah, so like if you're a bus driver, like, yeah, because here's the thing is like I also grew up in a household where I was taught that love is something that you foster and develop, right? Even though those feelings are not there up front, if that's a good person and you're a good person, just through doing life together, you can build that. And it could possibly be something that is such a deeper and more meaningful bond than like that immediate lust, that infatuation that comes at the start, right? So if I'm, let's not say 45, let's say 55. If I'm 55 and there's that bus driver who's a good man, who treats me well, and I feel like, you know, I'm getting later in life, then like, you know what, let's do that. And I don't consider that settling. Let me make that very clear.
I don't consider settling either, but here again, the men are saying you're giving the best of your years, waiting out for these other guys, and then you want to wait at 55.
But they're also saying choose better, do better. So like there's this like middle ground that needs to exist, right? Because you can't tell women to choose better and they've been choosing Pookies and Ray Rays no matter how hard women are trying to find a good man, and then tell them you waited too long. Like, listen, like this idea of people that fit together is really not as broad. Like you can't just smush two people together and it's going to work, right? There are so many other factors to that. So yes, some people aren't able to find their person until later in life because they just either weren't that person, didn't have access to that person, or their expectations were unrealistic. So like, so what?
All right, Cap.
How did I still question the like I still question the question because there's nuance in your question to Enos. You asked her, would she marry a busboy? The nuance to that is, how did they meet? Like, how did he end up in her orbit to where? So you met the bus. Wait. Let's clarify. Wait. Let's clarify what a busboy is. A busboy. She's not gonna meet a busboy at a restaurant unless she left her purse after dinner and she went back to him.
Ballet guy.
Like that. she's not gonna see him like that. He's gonna look more like an object. And when I say that, it's more like the ambiance to the restaurant, the ambient, like it's a person to do a task for her. Like that's not the way that works. Like you're not gonna spark up this random conversation with this random ass dude that's your busboy. You dining alone? You dining alone? So you went to the restaurant? Wait. No. Think about this for a minute. Think about this for a minute. Because when you say busboy, where you're sitting on the bus next to the bus boy while you're trying to talk to the bus driver, like this shit is crazy. Like the person will never end up in your orbit like that unless you meet them at like a grocery store.
He's at his cousin's house, and
why is she at his cousin's house?
Lives next door to
you. See what I'm saying? Like, what are we talking about? Like, it just real life doesn't happen like that. It doesn't.
It does.
So do you not socialize? Hang on, wait. I'm gonna ask a couple questions. Do you not socialize? Like you coach?
Of course, I socialize.
Have you never interacted with like the parents of the kids or their teachers?
Not in a way where I'm trying to wait. Let's talk real life. I'm not gonna talk to them in a way to where I'm gonna invite them to dinner.
But so that's you and your personal standards, right? So here's the thing:
so you don't have standards. You're gonna talk to the busboy?
Sorry.
I mean, I'm gonna use the same logic. So you're saying you don't have standards? You talk to the busboy?
Absolutely.
Like he's not gonna end up in your orbit like that.
No. So crazy. Here's the thing, right? Let's talk about this because I think it's important. Marcus talked about earlier how like when he's on a date or was on dates with women, the one thing he would look at is the way that she would interact with the people at the restaurant. I've also worked in the restaurant industry. So the bus boys, they're not ornamental to me. They are human beings who have a job. Yes, when they're clearing the table, thank you so much. How long have you been working here? You know what I mean? You make small talk with people. I'm when I want to be, a social person. I talk to people around me and it doesn't matter what the circumstance is. That's fine. So like I don't understand. Like we want women to be demure, we want them to be this friendly, we want them to be like these very soft beings, and then like when we say like yes, we acknowledge the bus boy, yes, we acknowledge the bus driver, yes, we acknowledge the guy at the gas station who's cleaning off the windshield. Like when we're saying like these people are not ornamental and we have conversations, one, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're interested, but two, it doesn't mean that we're not necessarily interested either. Shan just talked about her love for like UPS drivers, FedEx drivers. You know what I mean? Like these people don't disappear into the scenery just because of their job. Not for women who are grounded in like their environment. Yes, there are women that do that. Yes, there are women that are elitist and like they can't even actually see these men because they're not actively seeking them out. But your average woman, your everyday woman notices these people.
So wait. So first of all, think about this for like these are the issues that I'm having. We're not having real conversations. These people are at work. So while they're at work, hey, yo, I'm glad we chopped it up. What's your IG? Hey, yo, let me get your number. So you can turn around and potentially get them fired. They're gonna run the risk of doing that. In most cases, me as a server, as a bartender, as a busboy, as a dishwasher, which are all jobs that I have done in my life, I would never risk my job to holler at a piece of ass that's sitting at the table. I never did that. That doesn't make sense. People don't unless she hollered at me first. Wait, she hollered at me first. All bets are off. But in casual conversation and passing conversation, in the conversation we're talking about women being friendly, no, I'm not gonna come at you. And most of the time
you're gonna be staring at her, bro. You're gonna be hoping she give you some eye contact. Hopefully, you telling me that when you you say you was a what job? Give me the job so I can set this thing for you.
Okay, so if we're talking about my past, I have been a bartender. I have been a server.
Stop there. So you at the bar. And Halle Berry, not the famous one, but a lookalike, walk herself into the bar. And she get the grinning at you when you pass her drink. You not going to shoot your shot?
Nope. I never did.
That's cap.
I never did. Thus, I was never fired.
So much cap.
Now, if you come at me and say
My
some off the
hats
wall
are
shit, I'm
stacking
gonna
up right
reply.
now. My hats
Oh
are
my
just
goodness.
stacking
There's
up
a
right
certain way, like I don't like. I don't.
Oh,
If this is
no.
what y'all
Oh,
did,
no.
if this is what y'all did and how y'all moved, that actually says more about the way y'all actually think and see things
It's
than it
not
does
so.
about me. Because I never
AP,
one time came on to
you're
Hold on,
thinking
hold
anybody.
on. Let me
about it.
just
We
tell him
got
this.
people
Not
on
once.
Let me just
with
tell him this.
numerous
Before
cap. Shan has on a beret. Okay,
raspberry, but we
listen.
don't believe.
So what you're
Raspberry
talking about,
beret.
AP, what you're talking about actually goes against nature, because I read something one time and I looked at it in myself. It is not that you're trying to get at this woman and distract yourself. Beautiful women or women that are extremely attractive to you are distracting. Like literally,
Very.
men go stupid. Like oh, so it's not that you want to do something. You might
So
look. As a matter of
you
fact,
forget you're at work. I mean,
switch
what are
it
we
around.
talking
Switch it
about?
around. The same thing happens to women. So if you notice that a woman isn't even in your section, but keep coming by and asking you, "Do you want something?" That's a way of flirting. You know, I've done that about 1,000 times. That's not even my section. Cleaning a table that ain't even ready to be bussed yet. You good? You need anything? More tea for you?
So
you
you
don't have.
never was flirting with the
But
customer.
not like I said. Now,
That's
if they
gotta
can't,
be
no, I'm not even cleaning it up. I'm saying exactly what I just said. If they didn't give me those signals and those signs and said something to me, no, I never went out of my way to say, "Hey, yo, shawty." No, not one time, not once.
So here's the thing, right? Because we're trying to ground ourselves in like real life in this conversation. And Trigger Mike said something, I think it was last week. You spend most of your time at work. Why would you not be considering the people that are in your workspace? Like that whole
I didn't say
not
I wasn't
having
busting down the servers.
no,
Now.
no. What's up?
All right.
I didn't say that. We're talking customers versus the people I work with. Like that's a whole different animal.
But that's for you, right? Like some people would rather choose the customer, the client, depending on your industry, than your coworker, right? Because it doesn't get as much, but it's still your work environment. It's still the same level of professionalism slash unprofessionalism. It's still where you spend the majority of your time. So I think it's strange to say you're not going to be interacting or considering those people because
You're
that
changing. You're changing the dynamic of what I just said. You
no,
said
I'm not.
attracted. You just said I didn't say I wasn't attracted to him.
But
I never said that.
but
I said I never came onto him and pushed on him in a
but
way that would jeopardize my position at whatever job I'm working at. That is precisely what. That's
okay.
pretty much what I
So
said.
I'm gonna be really honest with you. And what I heard you say was that you're not able to flirt with or come onto a woman without jeopardizing your job.
I wouldn't. Never have.
No, that you don't have the ability to, because you can do that in a very tactful way where it would not jeopardize your job. And I know that because people have done that. I myself have done it in certain jobs. There is a way where you can talk to people and it not jeopardize your job. And so like if that's a skill set that like maybe could use a little bit more work, that's one thing. But like to say that like people shouldn't do it, I think is absolutely absurd because like you're going to meet people where you work.
Man, I recommend you do not jeopardize your job with these modern ass women by trying to holler at them while you are working and they are patronizing.
All
Don't
right.
you do it.
All right.
Don't
So
you do it.
I see where you're coming from now, AP. In the modern time, yeah, it's a
I
big
agree.
topic of an environment. So now I'm seeing what you're saying, but what I think if we're gonna lay the environment out or give a a depiction, or I'm talking about in an organic sense, not that you tried to make it like those situations happen so organically. Like I said, when she said Holly Berry, I worked at in college. The job where this happened to me the most was at Nordstrom. Extremely beautiful women shop there. I worked in women's shoes, first off. So I would just be fiddling with something at the cash wrap. I'll look up and a Holly Berry looking woman is just standing there. And I would literally be at a loss for words like, I don't even know how to say, how can I help you? So I would just start, acting crazy. But even though I'm running my usual script of customer service, I am flirting while I'm talking. So I think that's more natural and organic And that's really what I'm talking about. Because I stayed doing that every time I saw it.
So wait, I want you guys to give me clarity on this. Are we talking casual conversation being flirting? Because if I'm not getting choosing signals, I'm not going to push any envelope, nor am I going to risk my job. My job now, I'm definitely not going to risk, but I'm not going to risk my job for some.
Okay, so Mike,
Yeah,
so AP, let me say this: the front desk at the hotels, like when you stay in the hotel, that's fair game. The waitress at the IHOP across the street from the hotel, that's fair game. I used to be a personal trainer, fair game. Look, man, wherever you at and you attracted to somebody, it's
I used to be a professional hoe. That's all I heard.
I ran a nightclub for like 4 years. Like all of the jobs that I did, it was a stream of women I'm seeing. I'm like, it's only, bro, come on, bro.
Well, maybe he's just not like. I mean, that's just one person. It's possible that he's just not into it.
At the bar. Bar.
The table is set for you.
Yeah, you're mute. You're on mute.
That's probably how you accomplish not hollering at him. You just
me as a patron. Hold on. Me as a patron versus me as an employee are not the same. So me as a patron, I'm willing to go to see how far you're willing to go. Me as an employee, you have to be quite obvious for me to actually push the envelope. It has to be pretty much in my face. Yeah, I'm going to chat with you. I'm going to talk you up a little bit, but I'm not going to go any further than casual conversation. Unless you push it there, I won't. And I never have. And that's just me.
I think that's safe. That's
all right, you guys. We have to do the super chats. Let's do the super chats.
Inaz, you go ahead, read.
All right, Robbie Cheeks, $2. No time for hateration, especially in the dancery. Harrison Davis, $5. Salute. Modern Simp 101, $20, just because. Michael Richardson, $20. Happy birthday, Shan, my Taurus sister.
Yeah, and that Cash App is down below, so my name. So anytime y'all want to pour into a sister's soul, you can. But thank you. I see all the happy birthdays in the chat. Thank you guys, everybody who said happy birthday. Thank you so much.
Flex Henry 3, $2. Happy birthday. Dion Lewis, $5. Dating within socioeconomic status is more about proximity than individual income. You covet what you see the most. Robert Platinum, $5. Proverbs 23:4. Do not wear yourself out to get rich. Do not trust your own cleverness. Flex Henry 3, $5. When they turn 50 and single, they'll say there were no good men. LOL. Robert Platinum, $2. And now women love money more than men. Robert Platinum again, $5. It's a narcissistic attitude for a woman to feel that she's superior to any man based on employment and or income. We read that one. Robert Platinum again, $10. The monetary requirement that women have would be fine if it was only for survival of her and her future kids. But women only care about a man's finances to procure/sustain a certain lifestyle. Robert Platinum, $5. The highest caliber man that any woman deserves is that of her baby daddy.
Thanks everybody for the super chats. I think that is all of them. You know what? Somebody brought up a good point. One of the super chats stated how people, I think that in general, people choose money over women. What I'm seeing is an influx of women who are choosing money as far as relationship. They're maybe not seeing the man, they're seeing the monetary value of the man. But I also see that in men, not necessarily the same way though. When I say I see it in men, is I see men fighting against like, oh, I don't want to pay for these kids. Like when it comes to your own kids, you rather run because you don't want to pay for them. So I think it ain't so, Marcus.
What man is?
I just saw a court case where the guy got charged for child support. He tore the entire courtroom up just because he had to pay child support.
It probably was
I saw the
paternity
same
fraud.
video.
It probably
Now,
was paternity
watch
fraud.
that video in slow-mo and tell me if you see any similarities between the men on this panel and that nigga in that courtroom.
Oh no. Not any of the guys here. We know that that's not most.
Well, I just mean like it's a specific kind of guy. It's not even drama anymore. It's entertainment, right? That's not representative of most of the men out there. Could never be, But
most men I know is willing to. I got one of my friends, the very few that's single. Well, he was single. He spent over $80K fighting his baby mama trying to get custody of his child. The other one, he literally flies from Chicago to North Carolina every week, once a week, to see both of his kids. I don't know too many people that don't take care of their kids and don't go to extreme measures.
And I absolutely agree, because in our circle we know people who take care of their kids. I'm not saying that because I know tons of great fathers, but we know that there's a crew that's not amongst us that do the same thing. They will run because they don't want to financially take care of their kid. We're not talking about our group of people.
I think black men don't work real hard at changing that stigma. I was
gonna say, I will say, because now there's even what's her punk ass name? Oprah is trying to get on the right side of this because she's helped perpetuate it. She was in the damn movie that had this stigma going for so long that men are evil and they will turn on their responsibility. I think the actual man you're describing that actually turns away from his responsibility completely and of his own will is actually very rare. What it really is men having to fight for their children. And the narrative that's coming out now amongst other men to say, like, that whole F them kids thing, it sounds messed up, but it's actually a very strategic process to say, do not get, if a woman is literally, she's going to win. She's going to win. The average man does not have the money, the time, the mental health capability to fight for his children in court. He doesn't. To keep himself afloat, maybe if he's married to another woman, has other kids, he does not have the ability to do that. And what men are saying now within our own circles is, if she's making you fight, which is wrong, that's what we should be attacking. Mm-hmm. If she's making you fight, you have to do your legal obligation and explain it to those kids when they're 18 years old.
Why was House of Hypocrites famous?
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is why kids are actually turning around and hating their mom. Because once they get to know their dad, they like, yo, you lied. This dude is cool as shit. I went to him. He didn't reject me. He didn't turn me around. I'm at his crib every day now. You see what I'm saying? So
House of Hypocrites is famous not because he's a norm, because he's an oddity and people have not seen that often. A man saying, yeah, I got kids, I don't care about them, I'm not taking care of them, she on her own. That is newsworthy, because that's not really what we seeing out here like that. Maybe in the past, or the propaganda in the past, but not no more.
Look, I just want to say this, just touching real quick on the last topic. Message to men: find your purpose, move in your purpose. To the hell with these women, they will come. You find your purpose, move in your purpose, grind, get what you need, get what you feel like you deserve. You have to go out and earn it, work hard, and go get it. The women will come, and the women will always be there. There's what, 4 million more of them than there are of us. They're gonna be there. Don't worry about it. Find your purpose and move in it.
So I have a question around that, and I would like all the gentlemen on the panel to weigh in on that, because I hear men have that conversation, And then I also hear men talk about how there's a certain lack of trust when they find their woman after they've attained success. So, like, what are we really teaching, preaching in
All
terms of
right.
men finding their person?
So I preach the opposite. What AP just did is the equivalent of women telling you you have time to find your husband. So that is a, I don't know what they call it, is if I'm using the right word, a trope. That is what is ideal. That is actually what is ideal. Everybody, for some reason in the black community, keeps saying that you should do all of this stuff after you've achieved. It is a large part of your achievement process that you find yourself a partner. You can do it all at the same time. That's what we
You
aren't
pause.
really
Let's go
realizing.
into our next topic, and I feel like we're jumping. So let me pull this up because it's going to go into
I'm sorry.
the question. So give me a second. I'm going to pull this up. Since so this is guess why you read for me. But this is something that was on Fresh and Fit. I guess this is this thing that has come out about how men should move in order to be successful.
The quickest path to becoming a high value man. Do not get married. Avoid family creation. Vasectomy in your 20s. Lift consistently. Eliminate all sedations. Learn game and networking. Play to your strengths. Build.
Okay, so I know you guys looked a certain kind of way on number 3. They did not agree with the vasectomy. Like nobody, they unanimously did not agree with that part. So let's take number 3 out. Let's just forget that was even a part of it. But that goes into the question I think that Enos was stating, right? Enos, does that kind of go into?
Yeah, but I don't understand why number 3 would be taken out. I think that for all of the men who talk about women who choose to carry children that they did not want, vasectomies are reversible. That is the number one way to protect yourself from having an unplanned, unwanted family. Like, I don't, why,
I'm not one of my friends.
yeah, I don't understand why they would remove that. Like, it's
okay. That's a good way of looking at it. But keep it in there.
Yeah, you can only control yourself, and like relying on somebody else controlling themselves is like a really crazy way to move in this world, to be honest.
Okay, so I guess I'll jump in first. So I may not have said it properly. I don't know. Maybe I used the wrong words. Maybe I did something like Ebony did. When I say moving your purpose, what I mean is when find that purpose. That doesn't mean that somebody's not going to come along while you're finding that purpose. That doesn't mean that you ignore it when she shows up. What it means is you don't go chase it.
Okay.
Don't go chase it. It's always going to be there. There's always going to be a woman. And if a woman finds that you're moving in your purpose, there's always going to be a woman wanting to know more about you. Not just about what you do in bed, not just about what you can get for her, but genuinely wants to know more about you. That's the woman that you will say, "Hey, let's go to this nice restaurant. I got something I want to do," and then you do that one knee or whatever the hell they do these days, right? But that doesn't mean you ignore it when it's in front of you. In regards to the vasectomy, yeah, it's reversible, but I'd say be more disciplined with what you're doing with your manhood, and just make smarter choices. Like that's the answer. And I know Trigger Mike disagrees with this one a little bit, but I believe in being disciplined, being smart. You can't, and what you get a vasectomy, that's not going to stop you from getting anything that can crawl up into that little tiny little wee wee hole you got.
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm just saying in general on that number 3, because that would suggest that men are then going to just basically go and damn near everything raw and not have to worry about a kid.
That's exactly
That's not
what's
the
gonna
only
happen.
damn thing you got to worry about.
That's exactly what's gonna happen, bro.
So do you guys agree with that list though? But I know
Absolutely not. So here's the
Not
thing
most of it.
about,
I don't.
look at the name at the top. So one thing we have to do with this whole manosphere red pill movement is that I do not like this whole monolithic sense. You're red pill, you're manosphere. Take a look at what people are saying and what they are preaching. There are different people, there are different sectors and subjects that people like. And the crazy part about it is that that's the way they actually keep their life. Rollo Tomasi, Myron Gaines, all like some of these dudes have no kids, and they are literally to this day old as shit, like Rollo Tomasi. Not really middle age, but around the age, late 30s, early 40s, Myron Gaines. This is the way they want to live their life. And they're preaching it for men that want to listen. There's no way in hell most men will agree with this entire list, because what I heard, this is the idealistic view of a high value man. And the funny part about it is that this is like I don't know, because most CEOs have families, right?
That's what I was gonna ask. Don't most high value.
Exactly. This is not like a basically what I heard here was
Playboy high value.
Exactly. Create a broken home. Because in fact, this is unrealistic. It's idealistic and unrealistic, and it goes against human nature. All right. Because what's going to happen is no matter how much you think you're going to be focused, the distraction is going to be a woman. It's going to be a woman. All right. So you're going to create a broken home when you do have a child with her. You're going to be overly focused on looks and self-preservation, which means you're going to be overly selfish, which isn't good for anybody. And you're basically learning how to have everything and have nothing at the same time. You will have a dying legend and not a lasting legacy with this particular list. All right. So the last part about follow your goals and all of your strengths is good. But the bad part is that they look at women as who they actually are, which is a distraction, but not teaching men how to deal with it. Right. So it's ideal to say, wait till you're done with everything until you have children. But that's not ideal at all. Especially if you can't trust the woman that you're going to get with by that time. She likely does not like you for your characteristics. She does see you as a wallet because that's how you market yourself to everybody. So, it's a lot. Yeah, vasectomy in your 20s, like what? That's like mutilation. I don't know what to say to this.
The reason I say not against it is because a lot of people don't have the discipline to make sure they always wear a condom, and some people even become desensitized and can't remain with the condom. I didn't do it. I just did my patented fill it up with water, tie it, clean it, check it, and then take it with me and dispose of it later. But not everybody gonna do that every single time. So
what? Wait, go run that list back.
That's one step short of Drake and the hot sauce.
So I take it off, go to the bathroom, fill it up with water, then clean it and squeeze and like use the paper towel or the Kleenex or the tissue to see if any drippage was on the towel, and I put it in my pocket and take it with me.
I don't know why I thought you was about to reuse that sucker. Oh, my bad.
No, I'm not gonna talk diminishment.
Save this for later.
Diminishment. The diminishment.
All right.
I'm not putting that motherfucker in my pocket.
Okay, anybody else want to give their input on the list? Because I want to kind of swip it up a little bit.
Can you put it up one more time for me real quick, though?
Some people are saying this is the quickest way to become a high value man. Sure. So when you say high value, yes, this is a list for that. I'm telling you, the average man is going to get tripped up on number 2. Like they're not going to make, you have to have an extreme amount of discipline to strategically follow this list.
Remove number 1, move number 6 to number 1, take out number 2, take out number 3.
Somebody
I think the rest is solid.
I literally just saw a video that said that
Robert, how do you know that?
They use condom.
You know that?
I just literally today I saw on Instagram a guy saying that he did, and then he's looking like, y'all never did that? Like if you only had one and you knew somebody else was coming, so you just rinsed it out and reused it.
Never.
It's extremely hard. First off, that's how you end up breaking in the first place, trying to put it back on unrolled.
That's
So,
disgusting. For the
I would
woman,
never-
he's
yeah, I'd never
protecting
try that.
himself, but the woman
Yeah, yeah.
isn't protected.
Wait, hold up.
She caught it.
Yeah, he tried it, right?
What?
Listen, he just gave straight out instructions, and then he was like, "I've never tried it." The way you just explained it, like you just knew. And then you came and was like, "Well, I never tried it." What?
Wait, what do you mean?
Mike,
Like
Mike,
never
you
tried
done
to put it on the
you done
condom?
tried
No,
to- you done tried to put it back.
Bruh. You was like, I never
Hey,
tried
you
it.
tried to put
That's
it
one
back.
of the best ways to break it. Stretch it out and get it unrolled. And then try to put it
What
on.
I'm saying is, once it's unrolled, so if you only have one, and then you take it off, and she's like, "Oh, I thought we was going again." Then you're playing with it, fiddling with it, and then you try to put it back on, and your finger goes through it. You're like, "Well, that's it for the night. My bad. I'll bring more next
So
time."
you were
You are
successful
so-
in putting it back on before.
It just sounds
I
like
gotta
you-
call Cap on that's the end of the night.
Oh well, okay, yeah. Once tried it. I'm not about to fiddle with that thing. Like, no, I need a new one. Thank you. Once it's taken off, it's worthless to me. I'm sorry. I'm not reusing it.
Hilarious. Okay, anybody else want to
Well, my question is, if you're trying to become a high value man, based on, we've had these conversations about high value men, didn't like with every, actually even looking at some of the Instagram videos that they said that one of the things that will help you along is the right woman. So not getting to marry, I understand that, or just having kids, but part of being that high value man is also choosing the right woman.
to help me?
Absolutely. So
I won't disagree with
so
that at all.
actually, I'm gonna take it back. I'm gonna take back what I said. It's absolutely wrong. It's wrong. Because the greatest wealth builder, and this is proven, is marriage to the right woman, we could say. But for the average person, we'll say to a working woman. I asked on my show, I said, anybody ever save $60,000 in 1 year? Raise your hand. And my hand was the only one that went up. Now I have absolutely no problem saying that it's because I pay all the bills and my wife makes a lot of money. When her money comes to the account, I don't know what to do with it, so I just put it in savings because I don't need it for nothing. And that is the greatest wealth builder. When I get a good stock tip, when my boys call me up like, "Yo, you better get," I'm like, well, I done put all this money into my business, all this money here. Oh, there's money in my account to invest. I'm gonna go use that money that's in savings. That is the greatest wealth builder. That men cannot outpace that by themselves. You can't. One has never been greater than two in that sense.
Like that. Anybody else? Because I wanted to flip this a little bit. Anybody else want to contribute to that before I flip?
Yeah, I think going back to what Sugar Mike said about like the messenger and keeping that in mind when you're looking at these things. I don't think it's any secret that Fresh and Fit are under the assumption that every woman that has ever walked this earth is a gold digger, right? Like they categorize all women to be exactly the same, right? And so we can use labeling however you want, but when they're talking about, don't get married, don't do this, it's because they don't understand the value of what marriage and a woman contribute to their lives outside of like being a social status or trophy or just something to stick it in, right? So that's the other part. Like when you're taking that in, like how do they even feel about women in the first place?
True. And then the women that they have in their environment, like
They seek those women out. They specifically like vet those women to be on the show, right? Like they do it on purpose.
So we talked about that. Let's just run with what they're saying. So because I hear often in this space, especially last week, that women always want to be at the finish line. The women, don't ever want to build with a man. But this is saying that a woman shouldn't build with a man. So it becomes a little bit confusing, so to speak. Does that make sense? Or let's just say.
Can you pull that list back up?
Oh, sure. And another thing too, I want to call Cap. Oh, go ahead. That's your finger up.
Nowhere on this list does it even talk about having a family. It's just how to be the man and get women. That's a good list if that's what you're trying to do. If you want to create a family, I think what Trigger Mike's saying, find somebody that you could build with. But piggybacking off AP while being, consistent with doing what you're supposed to do in life is the best way.
So this is the cap part, okay? Because I hear in this space a lot, not amongst you guys, about the finish line. But I would argue that men in their 20s usually have a woman there with them when they're struggling. Would anybody disagree with that?
No.
Okay, so argue that women are at the finish line waiting for these guys, that will be an incorrect statement if you're in your 20s and you're broke and you have a woman.
No, but there are. So look, the women that's at the finish line waiting is different than the woman you probably dated your whole time.
That's not okay. That may be rightfully so, but what I'm trying to get at is there is a woman who is usually there riding with you in your 20s. So to say that women wait at the finish line is an incorrect statement, because most men in their most men in their 20s are not just sitting there with no woman. They're just not.
You're right. So naturally you're right, but it's not. So that's a good thing to break down, because every man can go into their 20s right now and say, what type of girl were you with? So like I said, one of the biggest problems with dating is that a lot of men and women are going to end up with broken hearts because someone has to be practiced. Someone has to, if you're going to date and not court and not iron out and do it for purpose, somebody has to be practiced. So the girls that you were talking to in your 20s rarely ever talked about marriage unless we just left the wedding. It was more about what they wanted to do for a living. They would talk more about the type of husband they wanted you to be more than the wife they wanted you to be. Everything was idealistic. Nothing was realistic. Nothing was purposeful or intentional about your life together. It was literally like enjoying the ride and this is my man. Everything is for show. Take pics for the grant. Like that was the life I think most people lived in their 20s.
So the gram was not there in our 20s. But what I'm saying to you is I'm going to tell you most women have a fantasy of being married. That's just something we grow up. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. I know it's thought culture now that's going on now. But we can all say at one point, whether he was right for us or not, we had a guy in our 20s that, because nobody's going to sit there and ride for you, spend money on you, help you get here and not see something with you, because then we just friend zone you. We could do that as you as a friend. You understand what I'm saying?
That's my ultimate point. Who is that man? So who is that man? Is he someone you actually see in the future, or is he someone giving you a certain look at the time? Like, you remember being in college, every woman wanted the popular frat boy type. Like, ooh, all the good. So it's more so it's like, this person looks good on me, but I'm not even thinking about this 10 years from now, what we could actually build. This is just the best look for me right now.
So it's both for most of those women, right? In their 20s. You want to be married to that guy. But I think where the disconnect is like there isn't that certainty of self to a lot of women who aren't taught to prioritize marriage from a young age. So you're not talking about marriage, you're fantasizing about it, you're talking about it with your girlfriends, but you're not talking about it with your partner because you don't want to quote unquote scare him away because he's still in his 20s, right? You don't want to be too pushy, you don't want to bully him into marriage. Like, that's more like, it's less about like, these are my standards and I'm unwilling to waver on them at that age than it is like this like lack of desire to get married. There's just a certain, like with upbringing, you just don't, a lot of people don't have that same certainty towards what they want at that point.
So agreed.
Yeah, that was the only part I was disagreeing with.
My point in this is, like I said, so often we say women don't want to be with a man when he is at his low. And I argued that they are. They're just not, that man is just not marrying those women. So now she's in her 30s because she spent her 20s with a guy who she probably helped. Now he didn't marry her. Now she's in another relationship in her 30s. That turns into 40s. Long-term relationships that just never lead to marriage. It's not like she's just saying, okay, I just want this rich guy. You know, I mean, maybe now they do, but from what I've seen in the past, because all I can do is go by that, I don't think that's how it worked.
Well,
I think most when people spent time in long-term relationships, that just didn't end in marriage.
I mean, whose fault is that? That to me is the.
And we're not talking about the fault. What I'm trying to argue is that stop saying that women just want to be at the finish line, because that is not the finish line.
So what I'm sticking by, they still want to be at the finish line because there is a woman you build with, right? But the majority of the women that like you see online, Instagram models and all of that, they are. Or hold on, okay.
They are the majority.
Hold on. That's why the majority of the women that people find uber attractive. That when they walk outside, get approached by every man that's driving down the street, or that's going to be in bottle service, or that can turn heads when they enter a room. Those women tend to be waiting at the finish line.
Or married right after college.
Now,
so that means that's your choice because you just want that woman. Don't say women because those are not all women. That's just the woman you want.
Now, what I will say as well is that because I'm kind of with Marcus because you're right, Shan, like they do get into the relationships with these men, but I don't think when the circumstances are equal, that young 20s age, nobody defines that as your lowest. No one defines it as your lowest. We're just at the same level. And when women are forced to get more serious about life faster than men are. So once they get serious, they start to look down on these men like, why aren't you at it? And then they start to transition into, you're at a low point right now. I need you to be higher than you actually are. This is very present when women want to date or have a man in their social age group. For some reason, you knew the whole time while y'all were in college, he's not gonna get out and make $100,000 more than you. But you see what I'm saying? But you required that, or you required a little bit more rigor in his profession once you started to become serious about life.
I would argue that guy, I understand what you're saying, but I would argue that guy who's 40-something years old now, on top of his game, he had a woman in the past that he's a single guy. Yeah. He had a woman in the past in his 20s, even his 30s, that he could have married. He just chose not to.
So the point I also want to make about that, it's not about him choosing not to. Remember, as much as we talk about divorces, women do the same exact thing at the same rate in relationships. Then
if we're going to talk about that, then we just should avoid marriage.
No, what I'm saying is one of the things that I experience is that with the marriage talk, because remember, men are actually extremely romantic when they're younger. That's why you should get them there. They're extremely romantic at that age. But I think someone in the chat just said it. Women actually try to dictate the terms of how everything should proceed. Yes, I want to get married. Timestamp. And then the man is like, nah, I don't know about all that. I'm going to go get my master's at this time. We're going to go here at this time. By the time I'm 32, we're going to have a baby. 32? Excuse me? So.
Go ahead, Ina.
So I agree with that statement just because, that's typically how biological clocks work, right? Like there's those embedded timestamps. But I think to the other part of that, like a lot of young girls are taught by older women who have been jaded and burned that they should not build with a man. So like they're being taught and groomed to not build with a man and to wait at the finish line. You are deserving to be at the finish line. Out of like bad experiences, there aren't, because like if we're honest, most happily married people live in like their little bubble, right? They're not out here doling it out, talking about how life is great and how all of the things that they've done to get there. They just seclude themselves. It's typically the people who've had terrible life experiences in dating and marriage who are really loud and really consistent in their messaging of things to do and not to do, right? So I think it's like a conglomerate of factors that, like, there are a lot of women that wait at the finish line, right? And it's not necessarily malicious. Sometimes it's all they know. Sometimes it's what they've taught. Sometimes they've been burdened themselves, right? Like you said, Shan, like, you spent 5, 10, 15 years with a man who didn't want to marry you. Like, there are all of these factors. And I think a couple weeks ago we talked about it too, about how some women don't grow with that man. They just sit back and wait for him to develop, right? Like, he's not going to carry your dead weight either. So I don't think there's like one answer to why women wait at this finish line, but I don't think it's all women. I think that number is growing, but it's not all women that want to wait at the finish line.
You know what?
One thing I gotta say,
I think-
I gotta say this. I gotta say this.
Like,
Hold on.
yeah, because he's
Go
been
ahead.
waiting for a while. Let him go.
Yeah.
I have two. So go ahead.
So I think a lot of it has to do with what Ina said. I think a lot of it has to do with what TM said. But in our 20s, men in general, yeah, we're ridiculously romantic, but we're not just romantic to you. That's the type of relationship that you're ready for in your women. A lot of women are ready for and want in their 20s. Most men, we're not ready to have that relationship. We might want that with you. You might be the one we wanted with when we hit about 30. But I know in our 20s, we're not ready for that. Most of us, I'm not saying all of us, most of us. So we try to keep this facade and this I don't know what you call it. I don't want to call it a lie because we're not intentionally trying to be that way. But damn it, our oats haven't been sown yet. And the type of relationship that women want, I can't say we're incapable, but for the most part, we're incapable of giving you that relationship until we get a little bit older, until we get a little bit more mature. And I think that's what some of our great grandparents understood that we have lost, kind of going back into what Ina said, kind of what we've lost. And now you have these women that are teaching their daughters, get yours. They don't say wait at the finish line, but get yours, wait at the finish line. And I think that's kind of how it's progressed. But we're not ready to, long story short, we're not ready for the relationship y'all are ready for, the type of relationship y'all are ready for at the time when y'all are ready for that relationship.
So
Well, let
you
me
would
ask you this.
Go ahead.
So my question is, if you're not ready for the relationship in 20s, you say men start hitting their stride in their 30s and 40s. All of this time, the woman who was in her best years, she's still aging, right? And so then at the end of the day, now when you're ready and that woman is coming to you, it's not that she waited at the finish line for you to get there. She was just waiting for somebody who was available. Because if you're not ready in your 20s, you hit your stride in your 30s, she's in her 30s, she meets you in her 30s. That's not the expectation of waiting at the finish line to get her there, to get you. That just happens to be the age and the stage that you're finally ready to make that type of commitment.
No.
So I guess that's the part that I'm not understanding.
And to add on to that, just so we can answer both of these at this, well, you know what? Let's not confuse these. Go ahead and answer a mistake, and I have something I wanted to add about what AP just said. But
so
go ahead.
I think it's more of an illusion. So when we say waiting at the finish line, I think it's one of those things that we're saying it like it happens on purpose. I do believe it can happen by accident. I don't know who said it, was either Inaz or Shan that basically alluded to once a woman is jaded. So I've known too many women that are jaded, and this is where we get the narrative of I'm working on myself now. So now she's avoiding relationships and serious commitment. There are plenty of times where I was 25, 26, trying to get with someone, and me being a serious-minded male, that was thrown in my face. I'm like, this is the woman I want. I love everything about her. Oh boy, you know how I feel about you, but I'm working on myself right now. Like, what? But y'all are supposed to be looking for husbands, but we already know the dude that she was messing with before did that to her. So it happens by accident. And the reason I say that, I took some notes. Hold on. Women aren't willing to go back into the market because they're not emotionally available. So we understand that. But then the toxic teaching from the past actually comes up. This is why we see women, the second they tell you that they are no longer available, they become obsessed with overachievement in like academics. That's like one of the symptoms that of women doing this, because if they're not going to, if it didn't work out for them being the most feminine, being the most helpful, unfortunately, with our women, what we see is that then they adopt the attraction strategy of a man. That's actually what we see. They will become obsessed with achievement. So by the time they're of a certain age, they got all these accolades because they think that's going to make them a more attractive option. Because most of the women waiting at the finish line, as we can see with like Ebony K. Williams, are very they have achieved some status, achieved some jobs, they got money of their own. This is why we use the term difficult to deal with, because it's like, look at how you're marketing yourself versus when you were 25.
So then my question is, shouldn't the messaging be not just towards the women, but more so towards the men about getting themselves together earlier instead of creating this finish line situation? Because my thing is that if we're saying that getting married earlier, starting family, building family, that helps you, actually speed track your way to wealth and all of that, then I think the messaging has to be not just towards the women. Like, that push has to be towards the men. But if we keep reinforcing to men, like, no, be on your purpose in your 20s, focus on a job, make that money, and you hit your stride in your 30s and 40s, that's when you get back. Like, you can't. You have to push men to mature a little faster too in that area, with understanding that part of your purpose is to find that woman, to get married, and then work towards the overall goal.
I think the solution is age gap, baby.
Yeah,
Well,
we know, Mark. I'm down with that.
Because I wanted to mention that,
Somebody
because
said it in the chat.
so my question, so you're right, age gap, but would that not be waiting at the finish line? If you're doing an age gap, you're looking for the man who's already got it. That's waiting at the finish line.
But
So
he wants you. It's different for us.
So
That
at
man
20,
wants
No,
you.
but the whole point is you call women certain, because you like, all the yo guys want to do is wait at the finish line. But you're promoting. If you're saying date the guy who already has it, he's older, that's waiting at the finish line.
That's true.
No, what's waiting at the finish
no.
line is when you're beautiful in your youth. You be hanging out with the ball players, the actors, and the dope boys in the city. And then when you turn 30, you try and get a man your age, and that's waiting at the finish line.
That's not waiting at the. That's not the definition of waiting at the finish line.
So waiting at the finish line is the opposite of that, right? So like, you're dating these men who, like, are in your socioeconomic range, and then after you've been jaded too many times, you then go for like the high value man because he's established and you don't have to build him because you've been burned by that. But I wanted to backtrack a little bit to what Mistaken was talking about. So often what I've seen is that the same women who are telling young girls, to watch out for A, B, and C, and expressing like this jaded outlook, are also the same women who are telling young boys to go get that money, to go be this, don't focus on these little girls, and it also comes from a place of like this often weird dynamic that can sometimes come from like either single parent households or households where a father may not be living in his masculinity, where like the son becomes the man of the house, right? So like, in order to keep that relationship, well, you got to focus on our family and not on your own family. But with men who grow up in 2-parent households where it is a healthy dynamic, not only is it modeled for them, right? These are the things that you benefit from and you can see it, but they're also taught those things from a young age. And so it's tough with so many people not having access to a father or not having access to a successful marriage to then promote that, because you're not seeing or understanding the benefits of it.
Man, I disagree with all of y'all.
Let me real fast, because I want to make sure I define what my idea of waiting at the finish line is. If you're not helping this man build, you have not helped in that process at all. You're just there to take on the perks of it all. Mm-hmm. That, in my opinion, is waiting at the finish line. You're not willing to go through steps, struggle to get to love. You just want a finished product. That, in my opinion, is waiting at the finish line. Am I wrong?
Mm-mm.
You see what was it? Dub Will said.
But
There's no waiting if you choose on an older guy when you're young.
Yeah.
Where's the waiting at? Makes sense to me.
So what I'm saying to you is there's no struggle like that. So when I thought about waiting, and I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Is a person who's not willing to be down for the struggle. They want a finished product. Period. I don't care how young you are. You just want the finished product. I don't want to go through the process to get to the finished product. I just want the finished product.
This is where we have a.
And I could be wrong.
I understand the disconnect here. Because what we're actually saying, everybody, the one thing we never talk about is that everybody doesn't qualify nor deserve that man, that older man that has it all put together.
Oh, for sure.
So the issue here is that there are women that don't qualify. What I define as waiting as a finish line is the women that do not qualify going after those men and thinking they actually have a real chance at them. So it's the women that
that's
qualify.
Just not qualified. Like that's not waiting at the finish line. That's just delusion.
Yeah, so you know, the woman that gets a man that is well put together is willing to serve him. She's literally leading with femininity, saying, "I'm gonna have your kids. How many do you want? Yes, you drive trucks. You own your own trucking company. I will stay home full time to raise." Like he got stars in his eyes because that's not what the women his age are saying. So she markets herself as such, and then actually does it. That's the woman that gets that man. Any woman that's not willing to do that and just want to stay home and sit on her ass and think she deserves a man like that, that's how I describe the women that are waiting at the finish line.
So Steve Harvey's wife, if you listen to that story where she was saying, he said he knew when he was younger he didn't have what it took to get her, right? And then he had to make something of himself to get her. She was doing this, what I was describing, and then ended up with Steve Harvey. To me, she waited at the finish line, and she was one of the rare cases where that worked. I see a lot of women that I've known that were very beautiful do that same type of thing, and it don't work. They just.
I don't think she waited at the finish line. I mean, she had a history of being with dudes who, you know,
we're at the finish line.
Well, no, what I was gonna say is,
it's just
is there a difference between a standard and waiting at the finish line? Meaning that if he met her at the time and she was saying, right now, you're not my standard. I need, I want a man that, I don't know, make this level of money or have this level of success. Is that waiting at the finish line if he understood the assignment, made something of himself because that's the woman that he wanted and then came back and got her? So, I think that situation is a little different than waiting at the finish line.
No. So, and here's why, right? Because regardless, like whether you position it from standard or wanting, right? She did not say, that's where you want to be. Great. Let's get together and do this together. And who knows where his career would be had she said, okay, from that point and built with him. She said, no, go do what you want to do. And when you are a finished product, you can come back. So it's still waiting at a finish line. Positioning it from like, this is my standard and this is what I want. It's still the same conversation of like sitting back and doing nothing and assuming these men are going to come to you. Like the difference is that he wanted her, right? He wanted her, but that isn't a factor in waiting at the finish line. That man wanting you does not determine whether or not you've been waiting at the finish line.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about too, and which we've said in these spaces, that if a man don't have his stuff together, he shouldn't be dating anyway. And so my thing is, if that was also her standard of saying, no, you don't got your ish together. So if you want to deal with me, you have to have your ish together. So, and he admitted that he was broke. I think I remember his story that he was sleeping in the Apollo Theater or something. He was broke or whatever. Like
that's the main reason I would never date her.
Yeah, she's absolutely right by saying, no, we don't need to be together. You go get your stuff together. When you got your stuff together, then we can, come and figure out what we're going to do.
How can I realistically expect you to take a vow saying for rich or poor, in sickness and health, when you won't mess with me in sickness or poor? Like that's
because at that point you're not obligated. No, there's a difference.
We also
if you go to a job and you know that job is not going to pay your worth, right? You have either the choice of going to that job and say, I'm a see if it work out or not, versus telling that job like, well, no, this is my expectation of what I think that I'm worth paying, and if you don't have it, or whatever, I'm gonna go somewhere else. And I think for her, that's what he did. But if the job wants you, guess what? They're gonna increase the amount that they're gonna offer you. And so I think that situation is different in the sense that if I know up front you're not going to pay my worth, then I'm not going to even invest my time. But once I'm there and I get to build at that job, I invest in that job, see how much I've contributed to that job, I'm going to be less willing to walk away from it if something goes wrong, because I feel like I'm part of that process.
This is why people who get married earlier don't usually divorce. Okay, so
and that's what I was going to say, Mike. But the research has shown that people who get married earlier, besides like those 15-year-olds,
no, I'm gonna put my simp hat on real quick. Nobody
they are actually successful. So with that being said, are we being taught wrong? Like, is this
oh, absolutely. But that my point of view is that, so what Marcus said, the sickness and the health thing, we got to understand. Yeah, this is going to be the simplest thing I've said all year. We have to understand the position women find themselves in. So if I had to try to think like a woman, it isn't just the fact that you love a man. You have to understand, if they're going to exercise any amount of foresight, you're going to know I'm going to impregnate your ass probably very quickly. Do you have the means to take care of this child, at least? Right? So this is what I think a woman should be thinking when she takes on her husband. That's why when her father gives her away and he has anything to do with the man that she chose, he's making sure you have these basic functions in life to sustain yourself and this woman and the child that she will bear for you. That's why when families are involved, that whole thing is very important. So sickness and health doesn't mean take him when he's poor and sick and all of that. It means when he falls sick. If he misses a step, gets laid off, and becomes poor, will you ride with him?
So the reason that's kind of tricky is because if you know for a fact she wouldn't, all right, so if you know for a fact she wouldn't date you while poor, if you lose your job and become poor, then you could honestly understand why she would leave you. It's the same as if you be like, I don't date fat women, and somebody becomes fat, really fat within a relationship. It's kind of like becoming a new person. Like, well, I understand the logic behind why somebody would have an issue with both of those things.
Do you think, no, I see what you're saying. Character.
Kind of the same thing.
I was going to say, someone's character is involved in that, though. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And women really love, like, this is why they love men who have established themselves. So it speaks to their work ethic, their ability to create themselves and recreate themselves. Because if you do become poor, you do have the ability to recreate yourself into something. Right. So it just depends on how low were you, right? Because women do take men at these low circumstances now and then, but it's literally just because they're building something. Jeff Bezos was a dude in the office corner, right? Like just working a regular job, but he in there killing it, and you can see the promise in that. Versus, a dude that's literally just a bum and not doing anything all day, every day.
So the other part of that is like, once you commit to those vows, you have that investment in that person, right? Mm-hmm. There's that obligation that we talk about, right? And obligation is not always a bad thing, right? In these circumstances, obligation is a great thing to keep that relationship going. But what do we tell women all the time? Unless that man is marrying you, it's nothing, right? And so we can't have that conversation and tell women like, a relationship is not of the same value as a marriage and expect the same level of input, right? Like, and we give the same messaging to men. You don't financially invest in your girlfriend the way that you do your wife. You don't have children with a woman who's not your wife. Like we have these conversations on both fronts because there's a certain level up. It's that promotion into marriage, right? And to Mistaken's like job analogy, I think a lot of people miss out in taking that mentality because there are some jobs that don't have the budget to pay you that, but what they can do is here's your career trajectory. Here's how we can help you get that money within the organization. Sure, it'll take 2, 3, 5 years, right? But you'll attain that and maybe even more at that point. And you'll have built and accrued all sorts of benefits while doing that. Whereas if you keep hopping around, who knows how long you'll be without a job and what kind of detriment that could be, right? So it's a mentality thing of like, once you're in and you're invested, your reality shifts away from just yourself, and you are now prioritizing another person or people.
And I think part of it is you as the individual determine what benefits you want. Because even though certain jobs are providing certain benefits, it may not be the benefits aligned with what your needs are. And you know what I'm saying? And so in that regard, yes, they may lay it out and say, this is, what we have to offer right now. Here's your trajectory. Where somebody else may say, here are the benefits that you receive now. And depending on the situation they're in, this other opportunity, I may not have the time to wait to get to here, depending on the age and stage I'm in my life. So this opportunity may be a lot better for me. And I think that was probably her situation. She wasn't young in her 20s. She already had, 2 kids. She already, had, a guy in jail, whatever. I don't know what her whole story was, but she wasn't a spring chicken. So in that regard, I can understand why she's saying, no, you got to have your stuff together at this point, because it appears that she already gave away her young years to a situation that wasn't beneficial to her.
To the exact guys I described
to me, that she's like, I'm not gonna invest in this. You got to come with your stuff already together, because I already got too much going on over here.
Ooh, y'all about to hate me. The chat's about to hate me. Mike probably said one of the most simping statements I've ever heard him say. I'm about to say one of the most red pill statements anybody has ever heard me say. First of all, I don't necessarily believe in the age gap dating. I'm taking it off of Steve Harvey, and I'm taking it off of Ebony. I'm just going to say what I think.
Okay.
I don't believe in age gap dating. I believe a lot of the problem is that women aren't being taught the true nature of men.
I agree.
I believe that marriage for women should happen somewhere between the ages of 22 to about 27, give or take. I believe marriage should happen for men between about the age 26 to about 33, 34, give or take. That's 4 to 5 years, bro. That's not age gap dating.
Look, if they was
like, you're not gonna be the same age. Like, what are we expecting them to be born on the same day, on the same year? That's not like, we're talking 4 or 5 years, and I'm not talking.
I think 35. A good gap will be up to 5 years. Anything over that, just based on what I was reading, it was saying like that's kind of. I think the 2-year age gap was the best, but 5, was a little better. Anything over that was, you start seeing negative results.
So, and the reason I say that women, younger women, aren't being taught the nature of men, we're gonna screw up in our 20s. But if you see that we're moving in our purpose, if we're moving for you, because I'm gonna tell you, the main thing that you can really expect from a man in his 20s is loyalty. If you're getting the loyalty and you see that he's moving in his purpose, lock him down if he's moving in his purpose.
Do most men know or even know what their purpose is at 20? I think that's part of what your 20s are for men and women.
One purpose thing is we got to put a lid on this, man.
Okay, how about this? We're moving towards what we will be doing for the rest of our life. Does that make you feel better? Yeah. That's called a purpose.
20 men don't know.
That's what you're gonna be doing. What you're gonna be working towards, right?
Yo,
you gotta figure it out.
I was you know what? In my early 20s, I was working towards my degree. Once I got my degree, I was figuring out exactly where I would line up. I made a whole bunch of bonehead mistakes, which is why I ended up in 500,000 different jobs.
Y'all I'm not done. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Is it that men don't grow up because they can't, or they just don't want to? Let's just hypothetically speak. If all women said no to access to their vagina.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, would that make them grow up a little faster, want to get married a little bit
so-
faster?
If all women said no, said
Listen.
I'm not going to give you any,
Listen,
Not gonna waste. Not gonna
hold
spend
on.
time with you. Boot up.
men. Yeah. So
we wouldn't be
let's
distracted.
use it the way I think about it. Men are soldiers. If you look at the way the world was built, men are extremely easy to control. Not hard to control. They're extremely easy to control when their family is when you give them a purpose. That's why I said purpose is a journey, not a destination. Men do exactly what is required from them if that's what the person they're aspiring to be is doing. So nothing is required for them to have sex. Nothing is required for them to really be good to a woman, to have a woman living in their house, for a woman to birth a child. Nothing is required. Therefore, really, men won't do this. Only men we see abiding by those rules today are the ones that are doing it by tradition. Right? My dad would, like, if what on 36, he would have my ass right now if I was a single dude. He'd be ringing up my phone. I'm sending this girl. We signed paper for her. She's coming. She's going to be your wife. He'd have been like, you see what I'm saying? Like, he'd have been fixed me up by now because it's tradition. So men do whatever is
Isn't that what I'm
required of
talking
them.
about?
We are so easy in that sense. So easy to control in that sense. But
And
I'm
isn't
gonna
that what
attack
I'm talking about getting back to? Like, I mean, like, once you figure out if you're moving upward in life, if that's what you are doing, I'm talking about not staying stagnant, not sitting still. You're moving in a positive direction in your life. Does that make that wording help a little bit? Because that's what I'm talking about. If a man is moving in an upward direction, not sitting stagnant, and he is loyal to you, let him keep moving in that purpose. Let him continue to grow. Grow with him as he gets older and as he stumbles, because we learn from our mistakes. We're gonna have to make mistakes before we learn. That's just kind of how we do it.
Oh, okay. I got
Ride with us.
Wait, can I
That's all it is. All you got to do is ride it out.
just
And I
one
understand
question.
this asking a lot. I'm not.
Ride it out.
One question for clarification. So what you're
Okay.
saying is, for what you're saying is, purpose is not necessarily that you found your aha. This is what I'm supposed to be doing in life.
that
What
might
you're
happen when you're
saying
50.
is purpose. Purpose is just making sure that you're growing.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
the worst part.
That's
the
what I
worst part,
mean to say.
Y'all have heard my
Gotcha.
theory. Y'all have heard my theory on the dichotomy of purpose, right? Women pretending their purpose is work when their purpose is actually family, and men pretending and not men actually not having a purpose until women give them families. This is why most men with families live longer, do well, have more money, because when you give a man something to care for, to strive, like, you have to think of how crazy it is for a man to dedicate all of his earnings to everybody else before him. That is the true meaning of purpose.
Okay.
Like,
So
literally, nobody is as selfless as a man that does that, right? But
Okay.
he has a reason to do it. So you give him a reason, he will do it. On that journey, he will find his purpose because he's always searching for a better way to provide. So why you see all these lifeless ass niggas that are zombies walking around here just trying to get in women's pants, it's because nothing is required of them, because nothing has been given to them of value.
Okay, so my question to all y'all was this. It's a two-part question. So at 21, if you have everything you need, money, a home, everything you need as a woman, are you ready to get married?
I think women are ready to get married at 18. If they got Prince Charming, they're ready to get married. Y'all don't understand how women listen. When I was a teenager, listen to this real fast. When I was a teenager, I used to write my bridesmaid list out. Like, I knew who my bridesmaids were gonna be, whatever, it was a whole thing. Like, women want to get married.
Now watch this. Trigger Mike and AP. At 21, if you had all the money you needed, a home, you was set up. Are you ready to get married at 21 with everything you want?
Married?
You know what? It's not about ready.
You hear all of it. You know what? Married? Y'all may not answer it right.
It's not about ready because nobody's actually ready. I think many men are so romantic. Many men are actually so romantic at that age that they would get married. They would.
So when were you like, you know what? I'm ready to get married. This is the time for me as a man.
when I was ready to have a kid,
What age was that?
about 24.
That's pretty young.
26.
What about you, Trigger Mike?
I'll say the time just 26. Separated. Yeah, I stayed in my slower phase a little too long.
So for me, it was 28 or 30. I was hoping y'all was gonna say a little older, but I don't know. I feel like if you give
I mean, but this group
No,
is
because
like,
I
Stayed in your
wanted
slower
to be.
phase a
Oh,
little
go ahead.
longer than I did. That's all.
No, see, I did not want to have a kid when I didn't want to still be raising a kid when I turned 55. I did not want that.
you
I
didn't want to
wanted
be the
every
grandpa dad.
no. Well, so I knew about at the age of 30 how I wanted to retire, how I wanted things to look, and I didn't really want the American dream the way that it was sold. So like it wouldn't have worked out. I got lucky that it wouldn't have worked out had I had kids later. Because you're
So
still raising kids, you know what I mean? And I
yeah.
wanted all of that to be done so I could do what I wanted to do.
AP, my point in that is this: if you get at like they use that example on Fresh and Fit and throughout the manosphere, right? If you give a man access to all the things that he never had access to previously, it's going to be a point in time when he splurges and he is trying to indulge in all that can be indulged in, right? A lot of men, if you give them everything they want and have the ability to indulge at 21, they're not jumping to get married, and because of that, it doesn't happen until you've indulged it. I didn't feel like I was ready to have a family until I could stay in the house. Until I could say, you know what? I don't have to go hang out with my homies tonight. I don't got to go on the boat. Oh, y'all got girls over there? They doing what? No, I'm good. I'm going to stay in the house. Until I could do that, I didn't think I was ready to start no family. Now,
there's no way I could have made the money that I needed to make, to be completely truthful with you. I couldn't have had everything at 21 because I didn't really start to go hard that direction until I had kids.
So I'm going to throw a huge monkey wrench in your statement, Marcus. I think a lot of girls at that age think they're ready for marriage, but what they're really ready for is the wedding.
The wedding.
Yeah.
That's true.
Right. I don't think that most women at that age, even if everything is set up, right, it's still so focused around the celebration of marriage and not actually being a wife. I think, especially in the era that we live in, even older women aren't necessarily ready to be a wife, right? That it's not ingrained the way it should be, right? So how can we really blame the men for having that mentality when the women themselves are masking it with wanting this lavish wedding or like the lifestyle that comes of being married and not necessarily the marriage itself?
Well, I honestly think that goes both ways. I don't think men are taught how to be husbands. Women aren't taught how to be wives. And I do think that that's part of the problem. But some of that learning is just like, as a woman, you may think you know what it is like to be a mother in your mind because you have a mother and you've seen her, but you don't really know what it's like until you actually become a mother. And I kind of think that that's a little what marriage is as well. Like you have an idea in your mind of what marriage is going to be, what it is, and then you get married and realize like, well, damn, it's nothing like what I thought it was going to be, just like motherhood, because your mother made it look easy. She took care of you and things like that. So you think it's a natural thing. And we're not given a lot of the tools as, women and men to understand what marriage truly is. Marriage is a whole lot of work. And I think a lot of times as married people, we fail to explain it. Or if we do explain it, we make it not seem like it's worth it, right? Because you're like, oh, marriage is a lot of hard work. You have to do this. You have to do it. So it becomes like, is this task of responsibility. And when you're young, you don't want that kind of responsibility if it's kind of laid out like that. And so it's really difficult to try to explain the concept of that to young people. So, and especially as women, especially if we have this idea of like what you were saying, Inaz, the wedding part. Like we just want to get to the wedding. We know what color our wedding, dress, what our bridesmaid dresses are going to be. We know what kind of style our wedding dress. We want, so we're planning for all of those things, the superficial aspects, the celebration of it. But nobody is kind of pulling us in and being like, okay, well, this is what you need to be doing for your husband.
Exactly.
This is what, you need to be doing as a mom, or these are things that's going to be happening that comes along with marriage. This is how you probably need to navigate that. We're not getting that part.
So you
can
say
I
that.
ask her a quick question before you go, TM? Because I'm curious, what do you think a husband is mistaken? Because at a young age, we're taught to provide, we're taught to protect, we are taught to be selfless. These are things we're taught from like little bitty. We're taught sacrifice as a young boy. We're taught sacrifice at a very young age, and that to me is exactly what a husband is. So I'm curious, what are we not taught that? What is a husband supposed to look like to a woman? I'm curious.
That was also my question.
Now, I'm only speaking from my perspective. I don't know if it's everybody else's, but the reason I say I beg to differ based on my experience, I think I was probably taught in my household how to be a wife because of the responsibilities that were put on me as a child growing up, as a female child. So it was 4 of us kids, 3 of us were girls, and I had a younger brother. In that household, we did have my mom and my dad, but the expectation of responsibility in terms of the household was only on us girls. We were responsible for all of the cooking. We were responsible for the laundry. We were responsible for cleaning the house. We were responsible for taking care of each other, even our younger brother. Whereas with my younger brother, he was the one that was being catered to and taken care of. He didn't really have responsibilities in the house. And so that's why I think that's the difference, is because a lot of times, like I said, from what I've experienced, a lot of boys are not necessarily given a lot of responsibilities. The mom, cater to them, the sisters or siblings have to take care of it. So in my experience, I would say I was trained more so to be a wife, more so than my brother was trained to be a husband.
So I got a lot to say to that. So this is when I tell you, it is very clear to me why my dad raised us the way he did. Because my sister would say, I'm sorry, not even just my sister. And my family, as you know, my dad is like the 4th in line. And there was a time where we all lived together it's only him and his eldest sister, the only blood family I have here in America. Those are the only ones. And my eldest cousin, who's like almost 50 now, once said to her younger brother, who's like 2 years younger, he don't ever have to do, they from New York, so she got that. He don't ever got to do blank, blank, and blank, blank. And my dad, not even her dad or my mom, that like went to her face and was like, you don't worry about what he has to do. Everything he has to do in this life, he's already being taught. I did not know what that meant, right? Because she's looking like, I got to make beds, I got to wash dishes, I got to do all this stuff. What I look at that now, my cousin, who she was referring to, is now a chief in the Navy. He has his own IT business and is not even out of the Navy yet, right? Functioning. He is responsible for paying for his parents' care. Not one woman in the family offered money or not. Because he's the eldest son. Sons assume men assume ultimate responsibility for everything, which is why their mothers are actually catering to them, because they actually want to live with their sons when they get old and their husbands die. If we really want to be real, that's why they're doing it. So, because I got 2 sisters. My mom damn sure don't want to live with them. And what I should say is that I told y'all, being a good husband is a lot like being a good man. You've learned it from when you were young. Love the woman. Do not abuse her. Care. Tend to their needs, her and the children. right? That's why women have to learn service in a different way.
Well, I
Because-
can't say that my brother grew up to be a good
yeah,
husband.
so
Yeah.
because you misconstrued what I said last week when I said it's harder to be a woman or a wife than a husband. It's not harder to be, it's harder to learn. Like you literally have a rigorous, duty-filled, task by task type of thing, and it doesn't look the same necessarily for a man. But somehow, ultimately, we end up with all the weight on our shoulders for the family's sake. Because during like Corona, like you look at those type of like the Rona, you see like women in the house, none of their jobs are really necessary, but the men are out making the economy work. That is how the depiction I'm trying to
Can I
get.
just show this real quick? So he said, who's responsible for the trash, physical protection, cutting the grass, fixing tape, being all of that? That's why I said in our household, it was different because, I mean, in New York, you had the trash compactor right there. So when the trash got, all of us was responsible for the trash. It wasn't just him taking out the trash. You know, protection or what have you. I can't really, I know this sounds bad and I'm really not trying to ish on nobody, but I would say that the protection part, I couldn't really say because my dad was, you know, out of the house a lot. And so we offer, you know, I guess communal protection, things like that. So some things just wasn't typical, but I would definitely, we didn't have grass. So it wasn't a responsibility of him having to cut grass, you know? So I just think it's just different. I would definitely say that my sisters and I were prepared more to be married than my brother was. And I think my brother learned how to be a husband once he got married. I don't think he was necessarily prepped ahead of time. He got his experience in the marriages.
So if we can make that is literally the end. Women learn how to be a wife before they get married. Men learn when they get married. Remember, it is a journey. Husband or all that is a journey, not a destination. You don't even learn until you get those duties, till you get those children, till you get that mortgage statement and all that insurance. You're like, what the? This shit is already due. You don't learn how to be a husband and accountable until you have something to be accountable for.
Okay, I can understand that. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, we got some super chats. First one, thank
Now I feel
Michael.
like you about to call Big Cap. I wanted to hear that. That eye was squinting.
Oh,
like,
go ahead.
No,
Oh, go ahead, Enos.
Yeah, it was more a question, right? Because, like, if you're going to make the statement that being a good husband is a lot like being a good man, right?
Mhm.
That sense of duty, that responsibility, that sense of obligation, why is it such a huge learning curve? Like, and why does it wait to start until you actually get married? Like, do you not become a good man until you're married?
Your responsibilities to your family are more intense than your responsibility to your service to the community. So being over one particular family and now people's emotional needs. So it's not just societal needs. It's not just the tax dollars out of your check. It's not just opening doors for women, which you do for your community and society. And your example is also good for society. It's your actual provision inside of your home that activates that husband part. Being someone who is kind of like a teacher to your wife. Like I've noticed that my wife has adopted my logic. Right. So basically taking on all of her weight and all of that comes when you when you get married. Like literally we're going through it. That's why I'm become a men's advocate, because I don't even know how I'm not super emotional and tearing my hair out because I have to deal with her issues while I'm dealing with mine. Right. So it's all of that baggage that's personal to you within your own family that kind of makes you more of a husband and more than just a good man.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one thing, because who was it, Mr. C, says that you got to be a husband long before the marriage. And what I was going to say, he kind of took what I was going to say, because I know that has been the messaging towards women, is that you have to be the wife. You have to be a wife before actually being a wife.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of what I was looking at too, is the fact that you guys are asking for the learning curve to come in the marriage, whereas women are told to be the wife before the marriage. marriage.
So what?
How does that
So
work?
that's a good thing to clear up. What we are talking about. So, and what that gentleman in the chat was talking about, you have to have the characteristics of a husband. We should not be having baby daddy pookie problems with the men who have characteristics of husbands. And you won't. You actually won't. That's why me and Marcus sat here like, I don't know a man who don't take care of his kids, because birds of a feather flock together. So women that are wives should only be seeking husbands within our circles.
That's fair. Like if any of my friends was single or became single, I know they would be excellent second husbands or first husbands to somebody, but they don't be single. Like it's rare that I ever would bump into them and they be single. Like it just don't happen. Like since we was young too, like they might have had, but they don't never be like solo by themselves. They don't be going that way.
And that's extremely easy. I mean, to be honest, it's extremely easy. This is the bad part. So I just said me and Marcus don't know anybody, and AP definitely too, don't know anybody that, or rarely that, or don't hang with anybody that doesn't take care of their kids. But yet women somehow find these men out everywhere. But damn, I lost my train of thought. I'll remember.
No, that's a fact.
I don't think that's what happens. I think
yes, it is. No, and here's why. It goes back to what I was saying earlier.
Real fast, I think that you got to remember the profession that both Mistaken and I are in. We deal with kids, so we're going to see it a little bit more often because we have had kids come in and out of our classrooms. So we're exposed to kids. So our experience is going to be a little different from yours or anybody else's, to be honest.
But it does like the reason I say it happens is because it goes back to what I was saying earlier. People who are happily married go live in a bubble. So anything outside of that bubble is a lot of this chaos, right? Like you guys have said, the majority of people around you are married. So you guys are all living in these bubbles inside of another bubble. Whereas like the rest of us who are trying to navigate, trying to find our bubble are just running into chaos. There's like when people talk about like marriage being that shield, that protective layer from like the trenches of society, that's why. Like these women aren't running into them because they're marriage material. They're running into them because like they're going into these depths of society to go seek them out. It's what's left when everybody else is in a bubble.
You know what? I will. So yes, I definitely, you're 100% correct. More so what I was talking about, because my wife definitely is in that bubble. Like she's the person that thinks all black women have PhDs because all her friends got PhDs. Like she's that type of person. It's like, what? We're doing awesome out here. Our kids are like, yo, have you seen Keisha in Fifth Ward? There's 1,000 of them and one of you. But
so we probably in a bubble too, Trigger Mike.
No,
because the men in the space always say that there are no marriageable women, but we.
What I'm actually saying is that
that's true.
In our bubble is not just married people. That's really what I'm saying. Our bubble is a group of people we don't see eligible women coming to mingle with. They literally want to be in that area. That's more so what I meant, to where I said, why don't I see women out here with actual eligible bachelors practicing hypergamy in this way? Yes, these men are boring. They're more studious. We are literally at the wine bar on Friday night, and we yawn and get tired at 11 and be like, nah, I'm out, fellas. See if the old lady's still up. I might be getting. We do that shit, but we're not going downtown unless it's somebody's birthday. Like, so I don't see those women coming out to where the men that will give them the experience they want. That's what I mean. Like, they don't come into this bubble to search. They'd rather stay in the frantic cycle of chaos. So
I can see how it could be hard for women though, because you absolutely gotta wait for us to solidify that relationship. And if a man ain't right, he could keep stringing 2-3 women along as long as
that's a fact.
Possible.
And
that is a fact.
Late in the process.
But I can also agree to the fact that if that happens, as the woman, you are allowing it. And the reason I say that is because even, last week when I had my, margaritas, I was talking a little bit too much.
We say that all the time.
But the truth of the matter is, even meeting my husband, and I had told y'all when we met, he straight up told me that he didn't want a relationship, but he liked, hanging out and blah blah blah. And I stayed in that situation for a while, thinking that I would be able to change the narrative of that situation. And it wasn't until I left that then it became what I wanted. Not that I was looking for that, but it doubled back. But even after it doubled back, there was still some standards that I had to set in place in terms of my expectation for him, because he didn't believe in marriage. He was speaking the same thing like a lot of these guys, like, if you my woman, I know, maybe some 5%ers out there, but that's what he was at that stage and age of his life. And the whole narrative about, if I'm claiming you as my woman, you already my wife. I don't need a piece of paper to, that kind of stuff. And so for me, in knowing that, it was a matter of, okay, I hear what you're saying, because at that point in time, I wasn't ready to be married. I was still, in my early 20s, probably like 22. I wasn't ready to get married. But I did have to set that standard of expectation for him. Like, okay, I hear what you're saying. I understand that. But as for me, I do plan on being married. That is my expectation. So either I'm going to be married to you or to somebody else. And I never said anything about being married ever again. And then I got married. And that was because I knew I would be willing to walk away again if I had to, because I knew what the expectation I had for my life in terms of having children and having a family. And because he knew that, I guess he felt it was worth it. And, he proposed and we got married. So it ended up working out. But I could have easily stayed in that situation and never end up being married, because he already told me I don't believe in marriage. So I would have had to take him at his word and have been willing to walk away. And I think a lot of times as women, we stay in that situation thinking that it will change. And then when it doesn't, we blame the guy. And it's not the guy's fault. He's showing you, telling you, that that's not the direction I'm moving in. But yet we stay in that situation.
Two things. Let's read the super chat. Let's read the super chat.
Oh, yeah. I just didn't want to cut the conversation off.
Miss Taking you a bad example because he changed his mind. The first one is from Robert.
Because she rode that baloney pony for years.
So first of all, let me just say thank you to Michael for my Cash App. Thank you, Michael. Okay, now you can read the super chat.
All right, pull up my
screen. No money.
Not you.
Oh, okay.
You got to pull it up. You got the controls.
Oh, I'll do it.
Okay.
Every black dad I know, Robert Platinum for $5. Every black dad I know had the mother of their children fight to keep the fathers out their lives. That's terrible.
That's crazy.
What hood you live in? 'Cause that's ghetto shit.
Team Fatty, $5. Shout out to the Untouchables. Shan AP, Trigger and Trigger Mike. It's when I read it that it always wants, because it's
okay.
Panel. Ray Alexander, $5. Panel. After providing an upper class lifestyle for your child, including a college education, would you be okay with your child marrying down in class? Quick poll.
Which one?
I would be okay with either one. Sorry.
Which one?
You mean if it's a male or female child?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have one of each.
I wouldn't.
But my son is wide open to choose whatever he decides to choose and make whatever mistake that he decides to make. My daughter, however, on the other hand, whomever she chooses will be guided by me regardless of what happens.
Yep, I was going to say the same thing.
She's already made that clear. We've already had that conversation, and she's already acting on it. So
she would just have to get married to me.
I think that when you say class, when I think you say class, I think of, okay, this is and I'm not saying anybody, it's just going to depend on the woman, because even with my son, this has to be the mother of your children. when you choose the wrong woman, that's how you don't get to see your kids, or that's the woman who's slashing your tire and doing crazy shit. So I would say no. I want him to be with a certain caliber of a woman to avoid the drama. And this is the woman who is she is the mother of your child. So that's just for me. I'm not projecting this on anybody. This is just how I feel.
So I agree with you, Shan. I think there's a difference in definition of class and the way that you're referring to it and the way the gentlemen are referring to it. So like class in terms of etiquette and how you conduct yourself, that I don't think that's what's being referred to. I think it's a socioeconomic class that they're talking about. Because you can find women who slash tires that are making six figures. Like, let's be really honest, right?
That's a fact.
Well, I don't think that, because I'm thinking she doesn't have class. Like, she doesn't have.
Yeah.
Okay.
For me,
damn, my bad.
My sons, my son, I ain't got no more sons yet. But son, I don't really care. But like you say, it can't be nobody that's gonna keep kids away. None of that type of craziness. I'm gonna tap him like, nah, bro, that ain't the move.
Yeah,
but my daughter, I got daughters too, bro. I'm multifaceted.
Yeah.
For my daughters, bare minimum, they need to be able to survive on their own if they ever moved off of our living area. But I'm not really tripping about that. I don't want her to come back with no Carlton. I don't want her to come back with somebody that I'm just gonna be looking like this lame man.
You know what, too?
We
gotta define class, because the problem we have right now is that a lot of women are looking down on men that are in their same class or above. They just don't have status, right? So I'm not going to accept her marrying down in class. I'm not going to let her exercise this false sense of status. If my daughter is a doctor, which she probably will, that's what it looked like she's going to want to do.
She like 3, right?
We do this in my culture. We do this. Trust me. We do this. She literally does volunteer hours.
This is what you gonna do.
She does volunteer hours at her mom's clinic already. So she's taking care of the babies with G-tubes already. So that's probably what, Daddy, I want to go back. Like, so she's probably going to do that. I would absolutely let her marry an owner operator that has 2 trucks, because he makes $200,000. That's not marrying down in class.
But that's the same class.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. That's the class. Well, no, but women like to say lower class because it's lower status. We got to get that right.
Oh, no.
So status you don't care about. It's finances for you.
It's not. Yeah, exactly. I'm not letting her do that, especially as a black woman. That's how so many women are single. They just want. In fact, let me say this, because this is what I didn't get to say on the Ebony K. Williams thing. Black women are penalizing black men for not being present in areas we never actually were present. Black women are present in media, law, what else? And this is areas white men dominate. So because they don't see their own men represented there, they hold it against us, right? But black men are heavily represented in things that make money that just don't have that prestigious look of things, right?
I just want more black doctors. I just want a black.
Exactly. They just want.
Hospital. I want to be
the part that's really offensive about that is that everything black women are doing, black men already did already.
Oh, for
there
sure.
were more black doctors that were men 30 years ago.
All
black lawyers were men 30 years ago. So it's like, yes, they've disappeared because of, the infamous.
So Mike, that is my question. Well, not necessarily a question, but something to what she was speaking to. And I don't want you to hear her voice when I'm saying this, even though she's the one that said it. But like you said, we're not seeing our men in these spaces. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that at one time they were.
Yep.
So my thing is, why isn't it is that push that we're saying for these men to do what they need to do to be in these spaces? Oh, shoot.
Go protect your family. That's your job.
No, that was my damn. I'm black as hell, right? Give me a.
It's a show.
but what I was saying is that the the talk around trying to encourage and push these men into these different spaces, like blue collar workers are needed. We are in those spaces,
Yeah.
but we are not in those other spaces as we move up the ladder for women who are trying to push their way into that area to have a suitable mate. So we do need to be pushing our men who are even in the blue class, area, that they are some very capable men to really be doctors, be lawyers, be
So I
of
actually
STEM.
disagree. So I actually disagree, but here's why. I can break it down for you strategically. What men are represented in STEM? What groups of men? What ethnic group do they come from?
I would say Asian.
Middle
A lot of,
Eastern,
yeah.
African. All of those men have fathers in their home. The lack of STEM jobs held by black men is a direct result of there being no fathers in the home. That it, like, literally, you see how I came up with that? Every man, because black men were doctors, black men were lawyers, all of
And
these
they had
high
their
jobs,
fathers in their home.
and they had their fathers in the house. So a
Mhm.
kid's ability to reach and achieve in these academic areas is directly related to their fathers being in the house, because without him, their reading level is actually at 4th grade. So it's not just a black men don't achieve, black men don't want to. They are literally systemically been pushed out. And with the increase in single mother led homes, somehow all these women have degrees. So women having degrees leads to the increase of their administrative job placement in the workforce. So they kind of already push men out too, because it's not just black men that are absent. Hispanic men are absent from these jobs. No Asian men are in media. Like, you see what I'm saying? So women want men in these jobs, but it's actually unrealistic for men to actually be in these jobs.
And you know what? It pushes
And that's the
that
thing. I don't
whole
think it's
narrative.
unrealistic. I don't.
But the thing about it is, too, think about single moms, because we've always said single moms, they have a tendency to raise their daughters but baby their sons. So just think about in our profession, it's never their fault. It's always your fault, or oh, he didn't turn his work in. That's not his fault. Were you there when he tried to bring it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, even though the door closed at 2:30? Like,
Man, that's crazy.
we do that. Black women do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're some enablers when it comes to our kids. Some of us, not all.
But yeah, and I hear what you're saying, Mike, but I think it's have been bigger now than ever in terms of opportunities for minorities to be in these spaces. And I'm speaking from an educational perspective of being in the school system, of knowing the programs and stuff that are available, because they are trying to recruit minorities, because this field is so saturated in one group or, over another. So the opportunities are there, but a lot of times they're not. I can only speak from my experience that a lot of them are not necessarily interested in going in that field.
No,
and I
nor
think
should they.
part of it, I think part of it too is not really understanding the variety of jobs that fall under the umbrella of STEM.
So
So it's a lack of exposure as well.
Well, it's all under what I said, because now you're starting to sound like I have to explain this to my wife too. So when I say it's a direct correlation, they actually need this. This is what I meant when me and Shan were talking about. She was like, "Are you going to let your kids go to college?" And I was like, "Yeah." I don't think the average black kid today should go to college. They do not. They weren't taught the habits in the home to be successful there. College is for smart people and rich people. College does not make you smart. It's where smart and intelligent people go to meet, congregate, and challenge ideas among other intelligent people. That's what it's for. It don't make you smart. So that's why I said their best chance is in the workforce. I got homies that make probably more than I do that started the shipyard and when we were in high school, when they were 14, at the apprenticeship program. That's where they belong, because school isn't for them. They didn't grow up in a way that taught them the habits to be able to do that successfully. It's not about them not being college educated, or you're trying to, talk down to them. Where do they have the best chance at life? That's why I say, if you're not going to fix the family first, we should not talk about black men being in high positions. They will not succeed there. Because let's talk about how you get to the doctor, to the engineer. The math involved. I teach math. People who are good at math are afraid of high level math that it takes to be able to qualify to take the MCAT, right? So,
But that's my point, is that there's more job in terms of exposure, is understanding the various jobs that fall under STEM. So everybody's not going to be the physicist. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to be doing things like that, but there are other jobs within that field that may be more, aligned with their capabilities, but it's still, in a space where there aren't a lot of us represented there.
And I just want to pull out a point too. I don't know what it takes to be an IT guy, but if there's any state testing that is involved with this, if you're not a great test taker, which a lot of our kids are, unfortunately, from what I've seen, that will be a hump in the road. Would that not be a barrier?
There's certification tests involved, which are extensive. So yeah, you're right.
Right. So it would even take a certain type of mindset to even get through the program, right? It's not like just everybody can get through this program. I would assume, right?
Absolutely. You still have to be studious. Like I said, it all comes down to habits. When for some reason when fathers are present, you have a way better chance of having good habits taught to the children, to where they know how to stay with something and emulate their peers that are doing well. Because the one thing I don't want to happen, and this is actually what keeps happening with these programs that they put in the hood for kids to, these academic programs that they put in the hood, they don't realize these kids don't have the habits to maintain it. Work is disgusting to them. This is why they actually do well. Where do they do well? When you tell them to work with their hands. When you show them what they do and then keep them telling them to do it and then send them a check for doing that, that's where they tend to excel. That's why they run toward jobs that appreciate that. That's all I'm saying.
All right, we got to read the rest of these super chats.
Yes.
The next one was L. Nixon, Voice of Reason.
Oh, did we already do that one? Okay, we did the fatty. Okay, so we did right. Okay, yeah. So we're on this one.
All right. When women work in the same capacity as men and marry their jobs, they often have less time and opportunity to marry good men who weren't already taken.
You get them second time around though. Robert Platinum number two. $2. I mean, women choose deadbeats that they complain about. Hey, man, Robert, they keeping the kids away and they choosing the deadbeats.
I'm just wondering what spaces he's in. That's the thing. When you have when you're able to say that you're seeing all of these things, like, all my friends, women, broke up and they be, my friends have to fight to see their kids. That makes sense if that's what you're surrounding yourself around, because other people who are not in those situations can say the opposite thing, like what you were saying, Marcus, and everybody I know, they take care of their kids. So
Robert Platinum, $2 more. Thanks for the super chats, bro. I had two women that chose the men that choose,
but it's okay, you said it wrong.
I had two women choose the men that KD them over me.
What that mean?
Unalived. He clarified it in the chat.
Oh, okay.
So we can't say that word on here, but unalived.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Robert, $2 ball. You can't have the push without two-parent households. I'm guessing you're talking about the push to college.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Robert Platinum, another $2 ball. Thanks, bro. S moms not only baby their sons, but insult their dad. What's S moms?
Single moms.
Single moms.
Oh, single mom.
Single moms. Okay.
Not all single moms.
Yo, can I say something just in general? We need to stop making excuses, yo. We make excuses for every damn thing. Excuses why men and women can't stay together. Excuses why kids can't learn in school. Excuses for everything. Shit, when you make a kid, yo, make it work. Your kid is struggling in school, figure out a way to get them what they need so that they're no longer struggling. Quit making excuses and start making solutions. I think that's one of the biggest problems in our community. We have an excuse for everything. We TM earlier was talking about some of the or he mentioned the word systemic problems. The systemic problem is us. We are our own problem a lot of times. And I honestly, I just simply get tired of hearing us make excuses for bad behavior and poor decisions. We still choose it. Like they flooded the community with drugs. We sold it. Then we went to jail. Like, what are we talking about? Like, we made these bad, terrible choices, and now it's time to fix it and quit making excuses as to why they can't be fixed. I just wanted to say that.
I got a question.
Uh,
AP,
Yo,
are you about to go to the studio and record a new album?
nah, bro, I've been trying to live like a basketball player when I see them up in the club back in the day. You know how y'all used to do. Come on, Marcus.
Those are Dennis
I can't
Rodman
see
shades.
shit.
I see.
So I was going to ask a different question. I was going to ask if Chaotic scripted that spiel.
No.
So, because here's the thing, right?
I don't like CT makes a lot of weird points, but the one thing I've always kind of agreed with him on is we do make a lot of dang on excuses. We do.
It's called.
So here's why like I struggle with that, right? I think that in order to have a solution, you need to identify what the problem is. And I think maybe we spend too much time in identifying the problem, because I'm not actually hearing excuses in these conversations. I'm hearing people funnel their way down to what the problem is. And you know what part of that problem is systemic issues. The fact that like the school to pipeline system, single mother homes, fatherless homes, the fact that boys are not as encouraged as girls are when it comes to these are actual problems. I don't see them as like we're making excuses of we don't want to change that, we don't want to see the needle move, but we need to have some sort of consensus on what it's like going to the doctors, right? Like you have to have a diagnosis in order for it to be treated.
Everything you just said, I lived though. Like, that's my problem.
Wait,
everything
hold on.
Everything you said, I lived it. I literally lived it.
AP, to speak to the point what Inaz has said, I think that is part of the problem. We've gone to the doctor. We already know what the problems are, but we stop there. And I think that is part of the issues. Like you go to the doctor, you get diagnosed, and the doctor, say, all right, you have diabetes, you need to, lose weight. You're going to have to take some insulin, make sure you do X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times we're like, okay, we understand that. But then when it's time for the work to be done, we find we find it very difficult to take the steps to start doing the work to get better. And I think that's where we are as a people, is that we're just stuck in the cycle of identifying a problem, or we know it's a systemic problem, but we're not moving forward in trying to do something just on an individual basis. I understand that we can't fix everybody all at once, but it does start at one person at a time. And I think that's where we get stuck. Like when we're having these conversations about relationship, we keep hearing the same things over and over again from both sides. And it's going to take somebody to make some changes on their own. Like I'm not going to be able to change Marcus or to change AP. But you know what? I do have the power to change myself. So I have to start there. And I think a lot of times we keep pointing the finger and the blame. We're pointing the finger at the system. And that's not to say that it's not true. We know that there are systemic issues, and we know the historical aspect of why those issues are the way they are, right? So we understand that. So now at what point are we can talk about the school system. Even me as an educator, I have issues with the school system. Absolutely. Because I see it on a daily basis. But you know what I don't see? I see people in these spaces. I hear parents complaining, but I don't see them showing up to parent-teacher conferences. I don't see them showing up when they have district meetings, talking about how the school system sucks and we need some changes. I don't see them showing up to volunteer. I don't see them getting on their kid to get there at the bare minimum, at least get your homework done, even if it's all wrong. I need to see you doing something. So those are the things that we have total control over. And we just don't. We'd rather complain and have somebody else fix the problem for us instead of us doing it for ourselves.
First, we gotta take accountability and responsibility for our part in what we do to continue the chaos. Right. That's the number one thing. And for whatever reason, we struggle with that piece. And as long as we struggle with that piece, we're gonna continue to spin our wheels in the mud. Meanwhile, like me, I just wanted something different. I had to have something different. I knew there was more out there. I just knew it, right? So my job at that point, when I understand that there's going to be more out there to the world, to go find it. Quit complaining. Because like what I heard from my uncles growing up, the white man this, the white man that, oh whitey, whitey, whitey. Like, well, both of y'all went to the damn Navy and are doing okay. Like, what are we talking about? Don't. That's the kind of stuff that always bugged me, right? But we as a community or as individuals in the community have to decide that, you know what, I gotta fix me. And if we all decide that we're gonna fix ourselves, if we all decide that, yo, I have been part of the problem, now we become part of the solution. And we stop pointing fingers at the black woman and kicking old Pookie out the house. Shit, black woman, quit dealing with Pookie. I don't know what to tell Pookie except for try to stop being yourself. but hell, decide not to be with him. That's a decision you got. Men, quit. If you're gonna get on here and you're gonna complain about how she's got you in child support court, why you bust, bro? Like, real talk, you bust. And then we come back and we say, the baby really wasn't his for 11 years, but you did bust in him, right? You still made that conscious decision. So there was a possibility that the baby was yours, aside from the dude in Detroit that the lady tried to blame the kid on him and he didn't even know the chick. But that's one of those rare things, right? Like, that's an outlier, right? Like, let's be honest. We just have to start making better decisions, not only with our minds, but with our bodies. And I think that'll clean up 90% of these issues. And let Whitey decide whatever else he wants to try to hold us back with. Let him try something else. But the same old tricks, the same old tactics, we have to get past.
So I'm very pro self accountability and taking personal inventory and stock. But to your uncle's defense, how old are they?
Who? You talking to me?
Cap and Kate. How old are your uncles? Or how old were they?
68. One died at 68 and the other one died at like 64.
So they were probably alive during like the 60s.
Oh, well, yeah. My mom was born in 56. Yeah. I had to do the math. Sorry.
It sounded to me like they was 100% right about who they problem was.
They are. My dad, same thing. But I understand that was the era that he grew up in. So I get it. So they're speaking facts from their experience.
That doesn't remove personal accountability and what you can control within self. But
right. So like I had one that was doing phenomenal, making well over 250 a year. And the other one ended up he ended up becoming a crackhead. I'm not gonna say that out loud. But like
the thing about it is this though. We talk about the talented tens, right? There's always gonna be exceptions that can overcome any type of struggle. When we talk about like us as a people, we need a systematic solution for a systematic problem to over encompass and take care of all the things. And I'm not saying that shrugs off personal responsibility, but it's something bigger than just one person taking personal accountability. Because a lot of people don't even know how to. taking personal accountability and the ability to be a self-starter, that's actually a gift. The same as being 6'5", or the same as being born extremely attractive. Not everyone has that thing, and systems need to be in place. The reason we've been in this situation is because systems are in place, or have been previously in place, to keep this situation like that. So
I agree, Marcus, but it's part the part, like I said, is even if you can just do the I know we earlier were talking about not doing the being the average, but in the situations that I've been in, that we're not even doing the bare minimum. So I think about my grandmother, whom I never met, but just hearing my dad talk about her, that she had an 8th grade education. And she had 3 kids that four kids that she had to raise on her own as a single mom, right? She didn't know anything about the school system. She, like many parents now, trust the school system, to raise their kids, take care of their kids, and what have you. But she also understood that she had a responsibility as a parent to her kids. So even though education-wise, she couldn't help them with their homework, she couldn't do any of that stuff. But you know what she did do? She set an expectation that, did you get your homework done? You know what I'm saying? Did you turn it in? Don't let me hear that teacher having a call to this house about anything. So she parented where she could. She couldn't do anything at the school system level, but she was able to do at the home level. Like, I can't help you with homework. I can't, be here with y'all at the house because, I have to work. I'm a single mom taking care of 4 children. But she set an environment of expectation. And did some things go wrong? Absolutely, because there was a lack of understanding and awareness and knowledge, on some levels with the education system. But she did the best that she can, and that was the bare minimum. Make sure your homework is done. Let me check to make sure that, you're not getting in trouble at school. And that was what she could do. Where we have parents now that are in a whole heck of a lot better situation than she was, and just won't even do that. And they have everything at their fingertips. They don't have to go to the school to see their kids' grades. They can log right on and see that. They have direct access to teachers.
They have access to the grade book real time.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They have access to the teachers almost 24 hours, 7 days a week, because they can send an email. You know what I'm saying? Or even if they don't have that, they can call up to the school like we did old school. You know what I'm saying? So for me, that's what I'm saying. It's the bare minimum that
they're going to show up for that football game. They're going to show up for that basketball game.
Well, hey, Ray Alexander is on point. That's
and they'll dress them kids down for the prom. You know what I'm saying? So it's the value system that I think we are competing against. As educators are saying, you can't complain about the school system when you're not investing in the bare minimum aspect by having your kids at least do the bare minimum, and we can take care of the rest inside the school.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I was never showing personal accountability.
Mm-hmm. So just to kind of because I love what Marcus said and what you said, Mistaken, and I just want to offer a slightly different perspective to what you and AP have brought up. Yes, personal accountability happens. Yes, we can grow that. If everybody does their part, we can change that. But let's also not pretend that there are structural issues. There are structural obstacles, right? You do, your grandmother's example, I think is beautiful, but imagine a situation where you have limited knowledge and that kid is getting in trouble, but it's not because of their behavior. It's because of what they look like. Your uncle AP, he may have been making a great income, but what were the working conditions? Because he was the minority working there, right? And let's be honest, at that point in time, right, there probably were not a whole lot of people that looked like him, and he was probably the first person that looked like that some of those people had to work with. So I think there's this balance that people need to have for understanding of the system in which people navigate in, while still also taking accountability. You can't really have one without the other, because you start to bang your head up against a wall without finding a solution.
All right, let me read this super chat.
I just want to say, I just want to answer Nas real quick.
I want to clarify this because JR likes to clip these up. I was not laughing at what Cap was saying. I was laughing at the fact that that dude was joking on your glasses in the chat.
He said something about taking accountability for them shades.
Listen, it was a serious moment, but when I saw that
look. I coach, and these work perfect in the sun. And then when I need to look at a kid, it looks just like this.
And then somebody else was like, because I was like, they're not showing up to the school, they're not showing up, and somebody typed, and they're not showing up, to the polls to vote. Somebody else wrote, showing up to the strip club.
But Inaz, I just want to say you actually made a good point that I didn't even consider. My uncle happened to be the first Black senior director over the entire maintenance facility for the rehab facilities in Arkansas. So I can see your point on that, because he was in fact the first.
I'm hating. Why you giving you guys credit for the point that I was making?
That's shut up, Marcus.
They fucking your vision.
No, did you make the point? I thought it was her.
No, she made the point. I'm just
quit complaining. See, that's what's wrong with you niggas already.
That's the problem. All these excuses. All right, can we pull it up? Harrison Davis.
Shan.
Raspberry Beret. You in? What are you doing?
The kind you find.
Oh, happy birthday, girl! It's after midnight.
No, my birthday is not till Sunday. I'm celebrating.
Oh, then never mind then.
Because it's Mother's Day. My birthday's on Mother's Day. I was actually born on Mother's Day.
Oh, that's fun.
Happy Mother's Day.
That was a super gift or punishment. Harrison Davis, $5. Love the topic and wish I could dialogue with you all outside of this. Hashtag salute church. Ray Alexander, $5. Parents, teachers, and communities that have high expectations for their kids get high achievement. It's done for sports. It can be done for academics. We all
facts.
Agree.
But we need tangible steps, and some of those steps might require widespread solutions that get applied universally across different demographics.
So my question, based on
thanks for all the super chats.
Based on what I don't know how to get rid of. Based on what you
Go ahead.
just said, Marcus. Mm-hmm. Did anybody have to give them steps for the sports? Yes. Or did they seek that out and be able now navigating when they get to a certain level? I think that's something different versus taking an initial step to, let me sign them up for Pee Wee League. Let me sign them up for this. We don't necessarily need the training to do that. We just do it.
So oftentimes, hold on, I just want to speak on this real quick. Oftentimes as a youth coach, you actually do go door knocking, especially when you see kids walking, and depending on where you're having practice at, if you see a kid walking that'll probably fit what you're trying to do or fit in the program, or that could use that escape from what they're currently doing, you'll follow them home and knock on the door and talk to the parent. Like, that is something that youth coaches actually do. And then when they get there, they typically don't. I'm sorry?
How about AAU basketball?
Same, similar.
I can't speak to that. That's
no, but because a lot of our kids are involved in sports at the school level. So it's already at the school is what I'm saying. But go ahead, Marcus. I'm sorry.
So I was gonna co-sign what he's saying in regards to, like, I was big enough to it'd be older guys like, damn, you how old? Oh, we got an AAU team. We got this park district tournament. We got this. And they will encourage you the same way. You need a systematic example of that pushes for education. Like, I don't know, maybe they get after school, what is it, the
They do.
teenage funded jobs where they tutor children and they find kids that are doing nothing, and then they get to sign off.
Listen, they
But
do.
this is the thing. Hold on, though, Marcus. This is the difference. It was something about you that set you apart from everybody else, and that's what typically happens in sports and in the school system. It'll be that Black child that's not like everybody else, that's excelling academically, and then they reach out to that child. Whereas you're tall as hell, so you're gonna stand out from all of the other kids, and then they'll seek you out. What I'm saying is all of those other kids that was playing sports, the coaches wasn't seeking them out.
The little short
Parents, right? The parents were able to get them enrolled in like the Pee Wee League or whatever. They took them there, and so for me, that's what I'm trying. Because I mean, even when I played sports, that was what it was.
And let's not sleep on AAU basketball. That takes a lot of effort out of any parent. Them traveling squads, like if you are AAU mom, your life becomes AAU. That takes so much effort out of a parent, out of a kid.
Let's not act like they not doing it because they think their son going to the league.
My mom never went on an AAU trip.
Right, but that is exactly my point, is that we'll do it for the things that we find value in. And I think a lot of us find the value in the sports. And we will try to nurture that because we think our kid is going to be the one. And so we do that as opposed to putting that same effort in the education piece.
Or practicing. Oh, go out there, dribble the ball. Go out there. You constantly up on them, like practice this, practice that.
Well,
you know. Hold on. Let me just throw this out before I lose this idea. It's real quick. It's a tangent. It's back to the Ebony K. Williams thing. You see how everybody is so fixated on having their child be the one. For all those other child, they can't be the one. It's a sense of destitute and failure that makes them not want to try and do a whole lot of other stuff. And when it comes to the dating market, if they're not the one as a man, then I can see how they get to this point where they're depressed, and they would be very upset about her saying that about men who've not been the one and then chose to figure out how to live their life. I just wanted to throw that in.
No, that's
happy birthday, Black.
So I wanted to say this too, right? Like when it comes to sports, there's so many examples, right? There are people to aspire to. It is constantly in people's faces, right? And it's highlighted in a way where especially young boys look up to that. We don't put in that same effort to highlight those people in other fields, right? So it's not just about, because what happens? There needs to be a bigger motivation. What happens to that kid who really loves reading, who has a person, is born with that personal, he gets bullied, he gets made fun of,
picked on.
Yeah, because there's no, we're not giving the scientists, the rocket engineers, we're not giving these people the same, we look down on them, right? There isn't that same vigor that we have as a society to motivate these boys to get into that stuff, right? And I'm using boys because girls are often pushed into the academics, right? It really is the boys that are steered away. But if they don't have those examples, if there isn't that like hoorah behind the community towards those people, why aspire to it? Why aspire to a job that's gonna continue to make you mediocre, right?
And have you not get sex? Women look down on you like every day.
And this is
no, because women, because I'm in a classroom, I can tell you in the beginning, I always have this thing where I ask kids what do they want to do, because I hold them accountable for what it is they want to do. It's like literally it's pasted on their table. This is what you said you wanted to be. This is what you want to be. You will be amazed at how many of them want to be doctors. They'll say they want to be doctors.
That's probably because you talk about it all day in class about your dream man.
Because I said at the beginning of the school year, so they haven't had me yet. Be quiet.
They heard about you. They heard you guys.
So they always, it's bragging. It sounds good, but they don't want to do the work to be the doctor.
But Shane, that's exactly what I'm saying, right? How many doctors can they name, and they follow their career and that progression to their that doctor's standing, right? Like
it's not
right, with sports, most guys, especially when it comes to basketball, can like off the top of their head spit out all of these stats from a certain player from their high school days. But we're not doing that for we're not following the career progression. So sure, okay, I want to be a doctor, but do I know what it actually takes? Have I seen somebody else do it? Do I have an understanding what it, a lot of the time they don't understand until it's later in high school or even into college that like, okay, maybe I'm not cut out for this. There isn't enough exposure to the reality of those jobs, but sports there is.
But let me point this out right here with Shade. The philosopher, he said, Black men who come from single mother homes feel obligated to provide for their mom. They can't wait 14 years it takes to become a doctor. If I make it playing sports, I can provide for my mom by 22. Now, I understand what he's trying to, say, but the truth of the matter is that you still won't be taking care of your mom because there's only a limited amount of spaces even available to you to even get to the level that you're making that kind of money in any sport. So the likelihood of you taking the 14 years to work towards being a doctor or what have you, the likelihood of you actually succeeding, the likelihood of that person actually succeeding in that versus the sports.
Well, let's not just make it about basketball. It's not that what he said is not just about basketball. It's really about the way they think about every career option. Because we make it about the men and wanting to do that. A lot of these moms are actually saying it, and I've heard somebody very close to me say it once. No, my son gonna provide for me. And I looked at her like she knew I was standing right next to him. I was like, oh shit. I was standing right next to him when I said, I looked over my shoulder like, your son is gonna do what? So he's been hearing that all his life, right? So he's in a rush to do whatever it takes because he thinks he's actually the man that's supposed to provide for a woman that's not his wife. So that's going to take not just NBA. He's going to do that with every job. He's like, well, I got to make money quick. I got to do something because mom needs something. Like they have been implanting this in the minds of these boys their entire lives. So that's where it comes from. And I also wanted to say something. Damn, I forgot. I'm forgetful tonight. Probably this margarita. I was a little pour heavy on the tequila, but y'all go ahead.
I was lucky. My mom never said that to me. She never geared me that way.
I think boys feel like that.
I was lucky
though.
You were lucky.
You feel like what?
I think boys automatically feel like I remember my brother from an early age saying that he can't wait till he makes enough money to take care of my mom. I just remember him saying that. I think that's
actually a great thing to talk about.
My son too.
Because what your father then comes to say is, take care of your mom, nigga. Am I dead? Yeah, that's what your dad is gonna say and say, no, it's my job to take care of your mother.
Mm-hmm.
And what they really mean is that by the time you're older, by the time she is no longer able to take care of herself and your father is not able to, I want to be like him and do that duty to relieve him. And provide for her in that way. But it is not the sole provision of mom type of thing. They're just looking more often at what dad does and be like, wow.
It's so funny. But the crazy thing about it all is you can practice all your life and your chances are so slim to be a professional basketball player, so slim to be a professional football player, and make a lot of money. But if you just work hard at being, put that effort into studying. If you get through everything, it's almost a guarantee.
You just reminded me of what I was going to say. Okay, now from the teachers, so y'all in high school?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And I'm at the collegiate level, right? So I see all the people y'all talking about. I see some of them, mostly women. But the boys that do come, there's one interesting thing about nursing. There's a saying that the best nurse is a C nurse. And boys in the entire system you have in the United States, and I think more places than the United States, we do audio and visual learning, which is basically catering to girls. Boys have never done well and will never do well with that style of learning. So even the boys that are in my courses that struggle with the learning, they take time, they don't use good grammar on their discussion boards. Let it be time for labs. Let them put their hands on something and be able to figure it out and learn that way. They become the best student in the class.
That sounds good. But now that we're moving towards project-based learning, the problem comes in actually doing
what
that
I'm saying. So we can't use like little anecdotes. What I'm talking about is a system-wide change. What I'm essentially saying is putting math on paper is going to be hard for a boy. Going outside and say, take 10 stones over there, bring back 4, now go count how many you have. That's how boys need to learn the entirety of their life. Men learn from doing. I don't understand how we can say that boys are dumb or boys are low class, whatever, when it's men that build the skyscrapers and do the calculations for architect. So you see, they do it, they learn. Even the mechanics, the lowest level, tech level people understand the architecture because they learn from doing it first. That is how boys learn.
I think most people learn best by doing, because it transitioned over into the application of it. You learn, and you learn by doing, just like we've talked even just in general about gaining. You're supposed to learn from your experiences. That's because you're doing something.
What I mean more so is when girls actually do pick up the audit, like y'all read more because you speak more word. Like y'all literally learn that way better because you want and are eager to be in conversation and dialogue. Boys are not. Like literally we tune out. Yeah.
I agree, but that has to do with depending on which subject area, right? So word-based, subject areas, yes, like you have your social studies, your language arts, things like that. But the sciences and math, two things typically happen. Girls usually aren't pushed in those areas to be successful and move in that direction in school. But the other thing too is in those areas, those are more hands-on areas to learn, because there's a lot of abstract thinking that goes along with, especially like the higher level maths and things like that, where if you're able to take the abstract and make it concrete, to be able to, like what you were saying, to your point, where you can do it with your hands, it shows that people typically learn that better that way. And I must admit that in the school system, a lot of times that part doesn't necessarily happen as often as it should.
So were you saying that girls aren't pushed towards science and math, saying that's why they're not highly represented in STEM because they're not pushed to it?
Yeah, it's a whole study, and you can just look up a lot of studies that talk about this in terms of socialization of girls in the directions that they're one, feeling more comfortable in, and then two, in terms of the expectations that are put on them in terms of math and sciences. There's a bunch of studies out there to talk about.
I was like, but there's also studies like debunking them, because when they say socialization, they're really talking about marketing. And we also got to understand that marketing just goes to who's going to buy. The only reason things are marketed to girls is because they're going to go for it. They don't market things to girls that they won't go for. And I think the proof that women actually don't like these professions, they don't like engineering, they don't like tech, because when you give them, they're discriminating against men to get women in these fields. Like literally, I will pay you more than the men to come. That's what they're doing. The women come and they leave. They don't like it, right? So, and that's because if you look at other STEM fields, such as being a doctor, which is caring for people, they're now the number one group of physicians. Anything dealing with people, women love. If it's dealing with things, sketches, what they don't like that. Women traditionally do not like math and science professions, which is why they stay away from it. They'll never stay in there. Never.
I agree, because I didn't even like hearing about it just a few minutes ago.
Well, for me, I think I would have, depending on what it was that I had been exposed to.
Yeah. So,
but I wasn't exposed to.
That hired me years ago as a clinic manager at an urgent care clinic, right after I got my master's degree. I was like, how did you get into this, to owning a clinic? She was one of the laser something engineer from Cornell, an Ivy League school, quit in 4 years of working in the field. That's what they all do. Like, I know so many of these women, they say they quit because it's male dominated. That has nothing to do with it. A lot of these jobs are contract based, you're isolated or whatever. what it is that now she's friends with my wife. Basically, ended up saying, "Well, I just didn't like it. The work wasn't fulfilling." It's not going to be fulfilling to most women, because it doesn't speak to your natural strengths or natural instincts or nothing like that. So, and I say that only to say that my wife is one of those people like, well, maybe our daughter can go into tech, maybe she can go into coding, and I say like, hell, she will. I look at numbers. Women don't stay, which means we'll spend all of this money and she will literally just forsake the degree and be like, "No, I'm done at 30." Right? The average for like a corporate female lawyer is 5 years. They did all that schooling and say, "Fuck this shit" after 5 years because they don't like it. So you have to go with what women lean towards. That's why I'm like, doctor, cool.
And that's why so you just proved my point, is that most women are pushed or guided more so in those areas as opposed to the other one. If we begin to normalize that aspect, I think more women would be.
No, I'm saying you have to look at the metric in which no matter how much you push them, they will not stay. So it's a waste. Like, so even with the doctor thing, they now have to create a push. And I'm creating a push to have more males in nursing. And the school that I work for is going to make a push to get more males, especially black males, in the airline, in the pilot program, and in the doctoral program, because the women are literally saying, look at these numbers. When most women are doctors, the profession dies because women just take breaks and or leave the profession entirely. When a man becomes a doctor, he's a doctor the rest of his life. They literally see patients part-time at 75 years old. But women will be like 50, like, I'm
yes, because baby, these dentists went part-time. You can get a dentist for a kid twice a week. Like nobody wants to work anymore, especially the women.
Yeah, so unfortunately.
Okay, you guys, I would braid my hair right now to give you guys a little hint. I got my hat on. I started to, but I was like, you know what? I'll just ride this thing out. Anybody else want any last minute anything? Anybody have anything to say? Do we have any more super chats that we need to?
Yeah, we got 3 of them.
Let's go, LA Lakers. So I guess
that one was for me. I can't believe that.
It's my man Tap with the $1.99. Shout out to Marcus and Trigger Mike. No simping, bro. No simping.
When did I simp? Hold on. Wait. Tap. When did I simp?
No, not you.
Now.
I was like, he didn't.
No, you don't know the other Tap?
I know. No. I'm asking that Tap. When did this AP
No,
simp? Because he specifically said Marcus and Trigger Mike.
No,
he didn't say my name.
No, you got to know.
I simp. So he probably talking to me.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, they was simping. You was right. My bad.
Say everybody's simping about everything. No matter what you say, you simping. He probably called me a simp 50 times in his head in explaining this.
I gotta be.
Hold on, man. I gotta get my simping card. By the way, Inaz, you look beautiful tonight. That big old smile, Shan. Oh my God, and mistaken. If you wasn't married, girl.
If I was married, I would be married.
Oh, hey.
Happy birthday, twin. My birthday twin. What's it? Blaxian? How do we say it?
Black
lexicon.
Lexion.
Did she say Lexion?
Do better.
Black lexicon.
Well, I can't see. First of all, I added because I can't really see the shit. You know what I'm saying?
Y'all know what a lexicon
Which is the reason why you guys are reading it for me.
Verbal reading, verbal
put this shit up.
words. All right, guys, shut it down.
You're thirst trapping again.
Oh no, she did it again.
I did what?
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
Yeah.
She did the shimmy.
Right. This gotta stop. It's
Do you
gotta
be
stop.
doing that in class?
Well, I don't have.
That's why they pay attention.
That's what I was about.
I don't wear tanks in class. First
Maybe
of
having
all,
to trigger Mike
I'm
eyes.
suited up with my teacher sweater
No.
on.
I had teachers that were like it was just inappropriate. Some of the like stuff they would wear. They'd be like, all right, the class over. I'm like, lady, I ain't getting up for at least another 5 minutes.
Hey, you guys, if you're in the Atlanta metro area and you would like to stop by Rocksteady at 9 p.m. tomorrow, say hi. Just stop by.
Don't be telling these crazy people where you at.
I mean, we can do meet and greets. What's the difference?
Yeah, most I chat cool.
Same thing.
All right.
So
Mike,
I'll be in
Mike
Rock
fly
City
in.
tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're in the ATL.
Shit, malt liquor.
Robert Platinum, you be having some hood stories, bro. They didn't get K'd and they
Oh,
still.
is this why AP was trying to get us all flight?
Baby.
Yeah,
What's-
yeah.
what's still-
Hey, I tried to tell y'all early in the week what the prices were for the flights. Yeah. And the drive
Don't
time.
worry, AP. I don't have any kids or anything that I'm responsible for. I'll be there tomorrow. Like what?
Them kids.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right,
AP, that I admire the fact that you wanted to, that. Thank you so much.
yeah,
You know what? I still might just drive the
them.
rental out that way. We'll see.
Come on.
How far away are you? from me?
We'll see.
How far?
But,
Where
you
do you live? AP.
Charlotte.
Oh, that's not. Yeah, that's like 3.5 hours. It's not. Yeah, it's not.
I be driving it all the time. My father-in-law lives in Charlotte.
Yeah, man. The Queen City, baby.
Yeah, so you better take this ride out here, AP.
Come on.
Yeah,
Mistaken coming.
but you know what? No, I like to, when I hit out of town, if I'm gonna be driving, I like my wheels because I like to floss a little bit.
Oh.
But then again, going to Atlanta, it might be best just to take the rental.
Yeah, if it makes you feel better, I don't plan to remember anything that happens tomorrow night.
I'm like,
Hey, just don't do that shimmy.
I was about to say, I think that was a soft signal.
I'm just glad Mike is sober tonight, so
Robert Platinum is about to come. He about to show up. He telling you where he lives.
Exit Street.
He telling you where he lives.
Hey, Robert, you already heard what she said. Robert, you heard what she said. She won't remember anything from tomorrow. Just saying.
He's saying he memorable.
What you saying? No, I have a designated driver who's gonna make sure I get home safely.
Yeah, Robert will drive you.
Only because the last time I drove home like that, I jumped the curb, and I'm just glad nobody was on it.
He'll drive her to 2300 Jackson Street.
Isn't that like in Indiana? Where is it? Isn't it where they from? Indiana, right? Wasn't it 2300 Jackson Street in Indiana?
It's one in Chicago. That's low key my address.
It's
That's Michael Jackson's address, y'all. 2300 Jackson Street. That's what he's talking about, right?
No, I don't.
I don't know.
It ain't no Jackson.
Street. Yes, it's a
There's
whole
probably a Jackson Street in Atlanta though too. Wouldn't that be a familiar?
I thought he was trying to joke because that's Michael Jackson. That's where they grew up at 2300 Jackson Street.
Oh, he said, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, not young. If y'all remember that, I was like, you got to be a certain age to remember 2300 Jackson Street. But I got it.
Lil Wayne said it in the song too.
He did.
Yes, Chelsea, it's way past my bedtime.
Yeah, that's mine too.
But
They
I'll
lying.
tell you.
Let me just
But I'll tell you.
they lying because when we click in broadcast, them motherfuckers be up by 3-4. I wake up.
That's why we said we got to get off now.
I will fall asleep and they go to an after hours and I wake up to them just talking away, just get it in. So don't let them lie like they about to go to sleep. No, they about to sleep on y'all and then they gonna have a whole conversation.
And she ain't gonna braid her hair, lay on the couch.
And shimmies.
It's like a bedtime story.
A couple more times.
And then Mike is gonna be like that in the camera.
Oh my god!
Oh,
All right,
yeah.
You have been quiet though for like the last hour or so. You've been so
That's a
quiet.
lie. 15 minutes maybe though.
She's been quiet. What's going on, Inaz?
I don't have anything to contribute.
What?
That means she agreed because she'll be quick to say.
Yeah. This is what she says.
No. Look, I'm gonna tell you. I'll tell you the truth. I was anticipating it when I went in on the systemic versus accountability piece. I was like, Inaz is coming. Inaz is coming. So I started cracking my knuckles, and she was quiet.
You put your sunglasses on?
No, I addressed it. Did you forget?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
wound up
you
agreeing
did.
with me.
You did.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You did address
Chaotic
it.
Truth
When he
Junior.
came in and said you need to take accountability for them glasses, I was, oh my God, I just couldn't control it.
If your high school coach didn't do this, and then when you talk to him, do this.
You weren't born in the 80s.
Shut up.
He wasn't also an off-duty sheriff on highway patrol.
Yeah, shut it down.
All right, you guys. So thank you guys for being with us here tonight. Panel, you guys are awesome. Even though you came a little late, it's okay. We're gonna work on that timing. But everything else was awesome. Thanks, you guys. See you guys next week, 9:30, hopefully, EST, Eastern Standard Time. Good night.
Good night.
Night.